Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Pac-12 Live Chat Show here on the Voice of College Football. It's week 4, and we want to welcome you to our show. We're here tonight to talk about the West Coast. I'm Tony Altimore. With me, we've got Tim Prangley, Rick Anaya, LBC Trojan, and Chris TBM. Guys, welcome to the Pac-12 Live Chat Show. How are you guys tonight?
Great. Thanks, Tony.
Fantastic, Tony. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I'm excited. What a week we had and what a week we have coming up. For those of you guys watching, we just want to tell you really quick about our show because some of you guys are probably new. This is a special new show that we've created here on the Voice of College Football channel to talk to you guys, the fans, and give you the opportunity to interact and chat about the Pac-12. There's a lot of shows around YouTube and around the internet for folks to talk about the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12. There's really wasn't much about the Pac-12. So together with Mark Rogers, we've got this show here for you guys to watch. Now, we are just like you. We are all Pac-12 alums and fans of our teams, but we also love watching the other teams. So we want to welcome you. We also want to welcome folks from other conferences who may be fans of teams in the Big Ten or the SEC who want to come tonight and just watch and hear about and chat about the Pac-12. There's a couple of ways you guys can interact with us because interaction is really something that's important. First one is you can call in. So first we're going to go through the schedule, and then we want to have you guys call in and chat about your teams, your games, what you think is going on. Having you guys be a part of the show makes all the difference. The second thing is the online chat. So in the corner of the YouTube screen is a chat feature. We'll be trying to monitor it. We can't always keep track of it while we do, but we want you guys engaging and chatting and talking about the show. And the third way, which gives you a chance to help steer the conversation a little bit, if you want to help support the Voice of College Football channel, you can do so with the super chat, or down in the description are Venmo or PayPal links for folks that aren't with us live. And we'll make sure we'll put your comment on the screen, and we'll talk about what you had to say. One quick rule for the chat, though: we want everything to be kind of fun, lighthearted about football. So nothing personal or nothing kind of no jackassery or anything. Because we being from the West Coast, we don't pay much attention. We just block people. It's easier that way. So don't be that guy. Anyway, but we want you to have fun. We want you to have a great time. And we want to talk about football. And what a weekend it was. So guys, the West Coast is back. What do you think? Let's chat real quick before we get into the schedule. Just quick reactions to last weekend.
The Pacific North. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was going to say a lot of big wins. Teams that we'll go into the actual scores, but there were some wins around the country that were some powerful and some statement wins against big conferences. That's forcing some of the national media kicking and screaming to actually give the Pac-12 the credit that it deserves. And to be honest, we haven't deserved it for a couple of years. But I was a bit worried, and still a bit worried, the fact that schools like Washington State and Oregon State still are not getting their due, but I'm sure that's going to be very soon. They'll be getting that. Well, maybe not Oregon State, but we'll see.
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest was holding it down this weekend between Washington absolutely dominating Michigan State, and stories of Oregon's demise were greatly exaggerated.
Isn't that the truth?
Showing what they did to BYU.
Yeah, big win by Michigan State, traveling across country to Washington. I predicted a Michigan State close win. I was wrong. Kudos to Kalen DeBoer and the squad that he's got assembled at the University of Washington, going 3-0. As Chris alluded to, the Pacific Northwest is very, very strong, 11-1 in those 4 schools. And then there's Utah. So should be there's some depth in the Pac-12, and so some great wins by Oregon at home against BYU, who previously beat Baylor. So that was a statement win as well.
That it was. All right, guys, we got a big week ahead. Let's chat about what's going on. So starting off, our first game, we noticed there's kind of a couple of groupings here in our games. We've got 2 games that really kind of have big, I think, kind of championship implications to them, that may really help drive who we're going to see in our Pac-12 championship game. First up to bat, Wazoo and Oregon. So, as you said, Rick, Oregon's demise greatly exaggerated. A couple storylines for this game. Oregon, after starting off against that freight train known as Georgia, has come roaring back with 2 just dominating wins, and they just stuck it to BYU, much to BYU's dismay, and they've made every laughable excuse in the world for why they lost, but they lost because they got their butts handed to them. It was great. And Wazoo, Washington State, they of course started off with close win against arch rival Idaho, who's right next to them, 8 miles away. Then they went on the road and stuck it to Wisconsin at Madison. And you guys saw Washington put on Twitter, jump up, and sit down. And then last week they had another great win. So, kind of exciting. This year they got brand new coach, Jake Dickert, who took over as the interim coach last year. He's come over undefeated, and brand new chancellor, Elizabeth Chilton, who is just a really amazing, brilliant leader for their school. She's undefeated as chancellor. We're actually trying to get her to come on our podcast. So it would be kind of fun. Guys, what do you think about the Cougs and Oregon?
Yeah, well, I think we've talked about this previously, but the thing about Oregon State, especially when they were up in when they went to Madison, is just this defense they have that Dickert has going. They're going to win a lot of games with their defense. We thought, all the hype was around the Cam Ward transferring in from Incarnate Word. That was going to be the big story. But I'll tell you what, I really like the way this. I believe they actually have statistically are better than they're leading the Pac-12. They are just jumping all over teams. They definitely lead the league in sacks and tackles for loss. So going in this game, I think that they're probably going to match up a little bit better than BYU speed-wise because let's face it, last week it just looked like they were athletes and the guys for BYU just looked like they're standing around. And the running back for Oregon, Irving, that dude just looked like he was in a different gear when it came to getting outside and just running right past the Cougars. So BYU is in the back, but I think that the Cougars are giving a better chance on defense this season.
The Cougs are riding high off of being 3-0, and the defense has definitely looked good. But I think unless we get really, really bad Bo Nix, the talent disparity in this game is going to take over. And, Oregon builds on its big win against BYU in Austin and ends up beating Washington State by like 10 or 14 points.
I think what you have to look at in this game is, can Oregon answer after a big game at home versus BYU? We saw what happened to Baylor. We saw what happened to BYU after a big game against Baylor. They traveled to Corvallis and they had a tough game. Oregon, don't doubt Oregon. They have the talent. Offensively, they're the number 48 ranked total offense in the country, averaging 452 yards a game. And Washington State, typically known as an offensive-based school under Jake Dickert, number 33 in total defense. They give up about 307 yards a game. But they're 97th in total offense. So that's where the juxtaposition is like Chris said, can Bo Nix manage the Oregon offense, limit turnovers, and to beat Washington State? I think it's going to be a very close game, but I do give the nod to Oregon by a field goal.
Well, you don't think they cover, right? It's 6.5. Is that the line?
It is 6.5. Yeah.
Yes.
Tony, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. I think that's probably a pretty safe bet. I think Oregon's a great team, and they just, as long as we get somebody in the chat, I think put it best. He said it depends. Are we getting Dr. Jekyll Bo Nix or Mr. Hyde Bo Nix? And who knows? But I think Oregon's got a lot of weapons. I think they looked really good. I love the Cougs, and I hope whoever from this game just continues to march along. But I think probably Oregon's got its edge in talent, and we'll be able to pull off the game. But I think it's going to be a good one. All right, guys. Next up to bat. This is quite a game. Benny and his chainsaw. We've got USC and Oregon State coming up. Now, this game has an interesting twist. Some of you guys know Oregon State is doing some really interesting stuff to their stadium, which is going to have maybe some effect on the game and the game environment here. So this was Reser Stadium as of last year. And for those of you guys who don't know, Reser Stadium was kind of built in a hurry back in the day because Oregon State didn't have a stadium. And they used to have to play most of their games up in Portland at a minor league baseball field. And then when they went to join the Pac, before they could be considered for joining the Pac-12, they needed to build a stadium. Oregon was the same thing, and so as was Washington State actually. So they built Reser Stadium. They've been in a process for the next few years of redoing it, and it's actually going to be really cool when it's done. So if you guys see this old section here, I don't know if you guys saw, they blew that up. It was actually really cool, and it's going to be this really, really neat whole new side. So I don't know if you guys saw the video where it actually got blown up. Pretty awesome. They knocked it over and the whole thing fell backwards. And they're going to build something really neat. But in the meantime, this is a picture as of today. This is like today at about 5 p.m. Construction. You can see this entire side is shut down. So they're only playing in half a stadium. So the crowd noise, certainly won't be what it normally would be before going up there. So this is going to be quite a game. But, a lot of people are real confident in USC. But for those folks who know USC, Corvallis is a place where scary things happen. So, guys, let's take a minute. If you'll indulge us here for about 35 seconds, let's refresh what terrifies USC fans about Corvallis. Ladies and gentlemen, I take you back to number 1 USC, ready to just stomp all over the Pac-12, Pac-10 actually at the time, in 2008. One of the many times this seems to have happened in Corvallis.
Snap takes it, and the Beavers are going to win the football game. It's over in Corvallis at Reser Stadium. For the second time in the history of the Oregon State football program, they've defeated a number 1 ranked team,
get off the field.
USC in 1967. And tonight, September 25th, 2008, it's the Beavers 27, number 1 USC 21. The Beavers have defeated the USC Trojans, and it's that same story from 2 years ago, Jimmy. A sea of orange on the field as the Beavers defeat the mighty men of Troy. Everyone was talking about, hey, is the Pac-10 too weak? Can the Trojans hold number 1 against this weak conference? They got their answer in their first conference game in Corvallis, Oregon.
So, guys, is that going to happen again? What are we going to see at Reser Stadium?
Well, I think USC is going to get out to a hot start. That's my guess. I just think for the last 3 games, USC started scoring on their the first game they scored the first 5 drives. Second game they scored on their first 4 drives. The last game they scored on the first 3 drives, touchdowns. That is. I like USC getting out in front, and then holding off. I'm saying a final score of 38-30 is what I think the final score.
So maybe not
the 38. Sorry, Chris. And the 38 is because I do think that Beavers going to try to control the ball, run the ball a lot, and limit the amount of times that Caleb's going to get chances, on offense. Try to get them out of sync with nice long drives, and that's why I think USC only scores 38. I think they're actually very efficient in their offense, but they will be limited in their possessions. Sorry, Chris.
No, you're good. So in the last week, it's been really interesting because I didn't think it would happen quite this fast, but there's quite a lot of national talk all of a sudden about the USC Trojans. Riley's amazing. The offensive amazing. Is Caleb Wilson, they're led by a Heisman candidate. USC's back. They're back. They're even back to giving people luxury cars, but now it's legal with NIL. Like people asking, what if USC goes 11-1, but their only losses to Utah? Are they worthy of a playoff? And you got the lowly unranked Oregon State Beavers, disrespected, put on the Pac-12 network, not only this game, but also against Utah next week. And you know what? Some people might think that Oregon State should just be, feel good about being on the same field as SC, but I'm bringing out the chainsaws and I'm taking the Beavs to win in Corvallis on Saturday.
I hear the chainsaws. Tim, what do we think?
Well,
Oh, you already went. Sorry, figure up.
Chris, what's your prediction on the score here? I know you got the sound effects and you're feeling good about yourself. Give us a score.
35-31.
Okay. That's fantastic. I love the sound effects. This game is going to be a great game. And yes, Oregon State does not get respect. The Pac-12 doesn't get respect. You saw that clip back in the Pac-10 talking about a weak conference. Well, guess what? They're going to keep on talking about a weak conference, but Oregon State's a good team, and they play well at home, and they're well coached. They're going to be missing a key part of their offense, and that's tight end Luke Musgrave, 6'6", 250. So Chance Nolan's not going to have that safety blanket to throw him the ball. They've got a great running game with Fenwick and Martinez. So they're going to want a ball control offense. Interesting stat about SC. They scored 7 touchdowns in the first quarter this year. And I expect SC to get out to another hot start. They haven't turned the ball over. They lead the nation in turnover margin with 10. Do I expect them to keep that up? I would like to see that, but chances are, USC is going to turn the ball over. It's going to be a physical game. And Oregon State knows they have to take away the ball to give Chance Nolan and their offense more opportunities to score. At the end of the day, though, Oregon State's not going to have enough to keep up with this offense, and I see SC winning 38-27.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Musgrave, I mean, he's a big guy. He's a tight end for them, but he's also sure hands, like you said, because I think the problem, and maybe the Oregon State fans can chime in on this, is they've had a hard time, their receivers holding on to the ball. And, they've also, at the same time, I've been worried. My big worry was them running the ball, but they haven't shown they're able to run the ball like they did last year. Again, I would like to hear from our Beaver fans on why that might be as far as the running is concerned.
Well, we're going to be able to talk a little bit more about this game. I think the issue with this game really comes down to, does USC play to its potential? And, I mean, if they don't, it's going to be ugly. We're going to see 2006. We're going to see 2008. We're going to see 2000. We're going to see 67. It's going to be a repeat of what we used to see. But I think they're actually going to play well. I predict USC not only wins, I think they beat the spread. I think USC wins by at least 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4 touchdowns. I think it's going to be something else. Here is my prediction. If Chris is going to pull out the chainsaw, I'm pulling out. Beavers, we've got you. All right.
Tony, one quick thing I noticed about that film is that all those clips happen to be in the Coliseum.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for reminding me.
And unfortunately, they play in Corvallis this weekend.
They do, but they only have a stadium.
Chris, I had a question for you. Getting back to when we used to give luxury cars to our players, do you mean the 10-year-old Impala? Is that what you were talking about?
First of all, we didn't give him the 10-year-old Impala. But now we give them S500, so it's fine.
Yeah, no, I'm just jealous of what you guys got going with NIL because we're about 18 steps behind in that regard.
Yeah, now we've got S500s. Life is good. Life is very good. Speaking of that, we've got 2 games this week, guys, that are a new special brand of Pac-12. There are 2 teams in the Pac-12 hosting games that are absolute dumpster fires. So the Pac-12 as a conference is doing great, but we do have, like everyone has their cellar dwellers, we have our 2 dumpster fires. The first one is Arizona State. Guys, we've been saying all year we thought Arizona State was going to be a dumpster fire. They showed it with Eastern Michigan and just got whacked. So as a Eastern Michigan legacy and a native of the state of Michigan, but as a Pac-12 host, guys, that was rough. Now Arizona State is going to bring Utah in. They've got an interim coach. The world is burning in Tempe. Guys, what do we think is going to happen with this game?
Go ahead. I'm talking with Tidy Guy.
All right, I'll take it. just when you thought that Tom's one, yeah, Herb is gone, right? But Herm, sorry. But just when you thought the dumpster fire couldn't get any worse, you do have the story coming out. And again, there's not a lot of details about it of staffers that were sharing game plans with opposing coaches because they didn't want Herm to lead things anymore. So the dumpster fire gets larger and larger, even when you think it, might subside a little bit. That place is a mess right now. Give me the Utes by a bundle.
Tim, what do you think?
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, this is just bad, and what a time for ASU to get Utah. Herm's gone. ASU's just in shambles. Utah is just a tough defensive team. They rank number 9 in the country in total defense, just giving up 236 yards a game and just over 14 points. ASU has got nothing on offense, nothing on defense. This is just going to be a beatdown, and Utah is going to roll. I see Utah winning by 35 points.
Yeah, this is a mess. This is going to be a one-sided affair. The Arizona State I guess, can't get any lower than they are right now. And I think that Utah and Rising have a lot to prove. They're going to come in and crush them. I don't even have a score. It's just going to be a one-sided affair. Utah wins big.
I think you're right. I think it's gonna get real ugly real fast. It's been a rough week for Arizona State. They do talk about like you said, Coach Whittingham. Somebody pointed out Whittingham said they're sort of like a wounded animal to watch out for them. I don't think Utah is going to be surprised by them, but Arizona State, just what we've seen. I mean, they gave up 60-some points to Oklahoma State. They got whacked by Eastern. I think their gig is up. I think it's going to get uglier and uglier as the season goes on. So, somebody in the chat, we're going to do callers in a little bit. Send me a note in the private chat real quick if it's about this game. But guys, let's talk about what else is going on. Boulder is on fire. And it is, Colorado might be one of the worst teams in football. And this is really kind of stunning. So if some of you guys are actually maybe too young to know, Colorado won national champion in the 90s. They won Heisman trophies. This is the school that has Ralphie, the greatest mascot in all of sports. Joel Klatt, the king of Fox, was their quarterback. Rashaan Salam, just an absolutely stunning, amazing player, won the Heisman Trophy. Jeremy Bloom, the Abercrombie cover model turned Olympic skier, turned one of the best punt returners and wide receivers in all of sports. These guys used to just dominate for Colorado. And now, just Boulder is burning down. Athletic director put out a statement essentially begging for fan support in this tough time. It doesn't get much worse than that. Guys, Colorado is hosting UCLA. UCLA's had a little bit of a slow start despite being undefeated, kind of sometimes playing a little bit to the competition. But they're headed into Boulder, and the world is on fire. What do we think is going to happen?
Chris, why don't you
By
take
the way,
the lead
just
on
one thing before we get there.
Sure.
Out of respect for Ralphie is not in this picture, you'll notice, because Ralphie deserves better.
So I kind of want to say a couple of nice things about Carl Durrell in case he gets fired real soon. Carl Durrell is responsible for some great feelings at UCLA, like beating SC 13-9 as a coach, or having a 10-win season, or winning the Rose Bowl as a player, or winning 3 or 4 against SC as a player. And he's going to be responsible for some more good feelings this weekend when we win by 24 and we move to being 4-0. Looking forward to our biggest test of the season on Friday night against Washington in the Rose Bowl the week after.
Yeah, I was really a bit surprised with the display on both offense and defense we saw last week from UCLA against South Alabama. I'm not sure what Chip Kelly is doing. I don't know if he's just maybe trying to be as vanilla as possible. It didn't appear that way. They're very lucky to win that game.
They were, and it doesn't excuse, even if you're being vanilla, it doesn't excuse the execution errors of having. There's a play where Charbonnet we thought he scored a touchdown off a pass. Then the next play we fumbled the snap. Another play where we give them the ball on on like another fumble that we give them the ball on like the 40-yard line off a pitch play. Just like some sloppy things, ball handling wise. Another play where we're losing, we're trying to get back, trying to get off the field. Defensive lineman tackles a guy that, just kind of falls on a guy that's already down, gets a 15-yarder on a third down that would have got us off the field. Some like really sloppy things. I'm glad that we escaped the Sun Belt, but we didn't look very good doing it. Thankfully, they ran that fake field goal thing that they did instead of just going for it, because they were, the Webb kid that South Alabama had, the running back was like a transfer from FSU. That guy was actually pretty good actually. And if they just hand the ball off to him, to win the game in that spot instead of trying to get cute with this fake field goal thing they did, then they might do it. And now we're looking at 2-1 instead of 3-0. But but we escaped. But there's a lot of things that we got to fix. That's for sure.
Well, starting with the fact, if you'd have told me that they were going to outrush you guys, 162 to 144, that's the stats are very, very even. But the one that's lopsided is not even lopsided. But they outrushed you. But the fact that you guys only rushed for 144, that's really an indictment on what the hell is Chip Kelly doing. Is it the line? Why couldn't you guys run the ball better on South Alabama?
The line's certainly not as good as it was last year. We didn't look good. It would be interesting too, because there were like a few situations where we would pop off for like a couple of good plays, and then we never had the moment, especially early, where if you're a good team, you kind of capitalize at certain points of the game and make it not a game anymore. And in literally all of those spots, without fail, we would have some kind of catastrophic error that would prevent us from doing something good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Charbonnet, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Charbonnet, rushed for 6 yards a carry, which is great. That's good. But again, he was held to under 80 yards rushing for the day. I'm hoping that when that continues, because again, the biggest worry I had for USC going into that game at the end of the year is the fact I thought you guys would run all over us. I'm wondering if that's going to be the case.
The Charbonnet
2 games.
The Charbonnet thing, I think, is a little bit different in the sense that I think that I think Deshaun Foster, the running back coach, even said something to this effect earlier in the year, of the fact that they're not going to like run him into the ground. And I think that they kind of have him on a pitch count of sorts, especially early on. I wouldn't be surprised if later in the season, against certain people, you see a much larger dose of Zach Charbonnet than you have so far this year.
Again, I would agree with you if you guys were up, 35-16 late in the third quarter and they decided to give him a rest. But that thing was a dogfight the whole way, and he only got 13 carries. But
we're not used to going undefeated in non-conference anyway, so this is a treat.
I'm just glad you guys are winning games in non-conference, right? That was an issue for a while.
We like it.
Well, this game, thank God it's on the Pac-12 network and nobody's really going to get to see it. And UCLA is lucky because if you were on ESPN, they'd be showing pictures of the Rose Bowl and quoting Troy Aikman of what a dumpster fire UCLA football has become. That beautiful hallowed ground, the Rose Bowl that's hosted over 100 Rose Bowls, is being abused. You guys are not paying your rent, can't get anybody in there. It's a joke. And the fact that you're going to Boulder to play an ex-UCLA quarterback, ex-UCLA coach who's on the hot seat, it's justification, because Chip Kelly is a shell of what he used to be. The fact that you're struggling against South Alabama at home is just a disgrace. So now we get to see what UCLA is about. 3 home games, didn't play particularly well, a lot of mistakes. Now you're going to go on the road for your first road game in an easy place to play, Boulder. look at the team. I think basically Colorado has got blown out of all 3 games. Every team's covered the spread on them. The spread is 21.5. UCLA should beat them by 28, but they won't. UCLA will win by 11. And again, you're lucky though, because it's on the Pac-12 network and nobody's going to really get to see it because you're playing Colorado. But good luck.
I think Colorado defense really bad. I didn't give a score to that. I think they win big. I think that it's UCLA is going to win somewhere around like 33-17. I think is what the final score is going to be.
I'm going to be honest, guys. I think some of you are underestimating the dumpster fire that is Colorado. I'm a big Colorado fan. I mean, you guys saw shout outs to the past. Colorado has such a rich history. I think Ralphie deserves better. I think UCLA has got a strong team. I think they're going to embarrass Karl Dorrell. And I think that I don't know if Karl Dorrell will coach his team through the end of the season. I don't know if Karl Dorrell will survive his next big slaughtering loss. Based on the athletic director, Rick George's plea with the fans to understand, Karl Dorrell is a pretty small buyout. If UCLA comes and just waxes them like I think they're going to, that could be the end of the Dorrell era at Colorado. We're going to see. It's going to be really interesting. We'll see what we have to say at our USC postgame live. This game will have ended by then. So when we talk about USC postgame, this game will probably be coming up as well. So next up to bat, let's see. We've got our couple good games. So, we had our big championship games. We had our dumpster fire games. We got 2 games I think are going to be really interesting coming up. First up to bat in Seattle. Now, you guys know our good friend, the Stanford Tree, is going there and premiering the new tree. So if you guys didn't get a chance to check out our show with the Stanford Tree, where we did a Pac-12 live chat show with him, definitely check it out. Awesome guy. We're going to get to see a new tree. Couple storylines coming up here in Washington. The resurgent Huskies, they came and just wiped the floor with Michigan State. Now, we talked earlier in our season about Kalen DeBoer, how he's done nothing in his career but win, win, win. Dubs up because, wow, he has started to show that in a rapid turnaround of Washington from what they had been before. So, shout out to him. And a special shout out, by the way, to Jen Cohen. I don't know if you guys know about Jen Cohen, one of the coolest stories in college sports. She, as a young little girl who loved football, but girls didn't really like football, wasn't encouraged as much about football, her dad would bring her to all the Husky games. And just kind of out of the moxie that goes with, being 11 years old or whatever, just started to write letters to John James and became a pen pal with the dog father himself, legendary Washington coach. Today, she is their AD. And she was a little bit on the hot seat and with the whole Jimmy Lake mess, brought in Kalen DeBoer, and things are just looking up. David Shaw and Tanner McKee are coming into town, guys. What is going to happen with the dogs in the trees? A little bit Cardinal action.
Yeah, I think that Stanford might be the second worst team in the conference, and I mean that by a fair amount. Also, the fact that Smith's going to be out for the game, Filkins is going to be the running back. Kalen DeBoer really, when he was in Indiana, he's at OSU Indiana, really got things on track, and I just see the connection that the DeBoer and the breath of fresh air that he's breathed into Penix's game. Their offense is moving. I watched that game twice because I really want to see what was in the sauce, because they're just moving the ball, big chunk plays left and right. I think that you're going to see more and more of that. They've got a great secondary, so that any chance that we see McKee get hot, probably not going to happen. I really think that Washington wins this game big. Penix again has this great he's week in and week out, he's hooking up with McMillan for these huge plays, either for touchdowns or their 60-yard bombs, like we saw the first drive against Michigan State last week. They just got something going on up there, and I think it's going to continue to roll. I'm seeing the Huskies winning big, something in the range of like 38-10. I don't think that Washington scores very much ball in this game.
I'm going to echo a lot of the same sentiments. Everybody after that Michigan State win for Washington is gushing over Kalen DeBoer and Penix, and I agree with them. And I said week 1 when Stanford played Colgate that that would be the only win Stanford has all year, and I'm going to stick with that until they prove me wrong. And Washington wins huge.
Yeah, Stanford's just overmatched in this game. The fact that Smith is out is only going to hurt them. Stanford ranks DFL, dead freaking last in turnover margin. They cannot hold on to the ball. They turn the ball over 4 times against Colgate and 4 times against USC. And that crowd is going to be raucous up there because Kalen DeBoer has got this team believing. Washington they're no joke. They rank number 4 in the country in total offense. So they're going to be bringing it with Michael Penix. And Stanford's just going to be overmatched. I see Washington winning this game handily going away, 45-14.
Yeah, I'm with you, Rick.
I think you're on mute, Tony.
Thank you. We love our friend the tree, but I don't think they're up to bat with what the Huskies have got. Just too many weapons. We saw how Penix looked against Michigan State last week, and assuming they don't have a complete breakdown, and given the game is at Husky Stadium, I think Washington wins big, and Washington continues to be one of the surging stories of the conference en route to a pretty strong ranking. Next game up to bat, we've got one that's going to be interesting. We've got Cal, who should be undefeated and should have beat Notre Dame. ACC refs have still not apologized. It's very rare that I think that truly the referees blow a game, but they blew that game. Notre Dame did not deserve that win. Sorry, Will. It's probably in the chat. Versus Arizona, a resurgent Arizona who has had a couple of really good games. They looked good against San Diego State. They actually looked fairly good against Mississippi State. Remember, this was one of the worst teams in football, guys. One of the worst teams in all of football the last few years. Jedd Fisch has come in, brought a new energy, got a bunch of transfers in. Stole the quarterback from Washington State, who's got them doing some good things. And last week, they took on the number 1 team in FCS, and it was late at night, but it was a game for the ages. So, And by the way, those were not Pac-12 refs. The people in the chat, they were ACC refs. Pac-12 refs apologize when they screw up. It doesn't mean they don't just keep doing it, but they do apologize. So unlike the ACC, they get a little bit of credit. Guys, we got the Cal Bears in Arizona. It's Usc and Wilma. What's going to happen?
So it's pretty unfortunate that Touchdown Jesus didn't answer Cal's Hail Mary at the end of the game because that would have been nice. But yeah, like Tony referenced, what I'm still waiting for is for someone to tell me who was offsides on Notre Dame's missed field goal that instead ended up being a first down and a touchdown on that drive instead of a missed field goal.
It was baloney.
Arizona is coming off a really good win against North Dakota State, right? Who I think before that game, North Dakota State hadn't lost to an FBS team or, since in 6 years or some such crazy stat. There's this really weird thing in the UCLA fan base about Jedd Fisch because he was our offensive coordinator for 1 year with Josh Rosen, where there's this segment that absolutely loves Jedd Fisch. And I think he's doing good stuff at Arizona and has them going in the right direction. But I am not part of that sub-segment that absolutely adores Jedd Fisch. And I see this as, likely a very good battle, but the Bear D leads the way and the offense does just enough at home to beat Arizona.
Yeah, well, looking at right there, Larry Pilgrim nailed it. It depends on which Jaden Laura comes to play. That he can make you like that wow play, and then just wow, what the hell were you thinking play? If he plays if everything goes the way it's planned, obviously we know Cal's gonna have a good defense, and Fisch is gonna bring in good offense. I still don't see Cal's offense is so terrible. It's not that Arizona's defense is that good. but I just don't see Cal being able to keep up with Arizona. So I see Arizona. They won't cover, but they'll win. I think they'll win probably comfortably, somewhere around.
Pretty sure they're underdogs, actually, Tim.
Who's underdogs? Wildcats underdogs?
Yep. I think Cal is favored by 3 points, if I recall correctly. Yep.
Oh, wow. Well, then I'll pick the upset then, because I think they're going to win comfortably, but it's not going to be a high scoring game. It'll be something like 20 to 14.
You got Arizona, Tim?
No, I'm taking Arizona. Yeah, Arizona over Cal. Yeah.
How about those Cal Bears? Last week in our Pac-12 live show, I predicted Cal would beat Notre Dame by 1 point.
I think they did.
And that was going to happen. But then Notre Dame had to break out the green jerseys for Cal. Really, Notre Dame? And you had your ACC refs on the Hail Mary disrespecting Cal. Cal scores that touchdown. They would go for 2. And, hey, I would have been close on the pick. But Cal's Cal. And they got a battle on their hands right now with Jed Fish and Delora. And yes, Delora is inconsistent. But he is a much better quarterback than Jack Plummer, and Cal's offense is just sputtering in the last, actually the whole season. So points will be at a premium. I like the dynamic offense that Arizona has and has improved. I see Arizona winning this game by a field goal.
LBC, I think that's actually real spot on. It's about what I was going to say. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think Arizona is going to be just a little bit better. But I think it's going to be a fun one, and it's going to be a good one to watch. Also, not a lot of games going on in this time frame. So, that kind of like dinner time game, I think this is going to be a pretty good one. It's on the Pac-12 network, that god-awful thing. So if you do get the Pac-12 network, guys, I think this is going to be a pretty good one to take a look at. So that's what's going on in the games this week. Now, we're going to talk about the conference in just a minute. But, guys, one of the things that makes this show unique is we want to hear from you. So we've been engaging with everybody in the chat, which is a lot of fun. But now this is a time that you get to call in and tell us what you think. We want to know what you guys think about these games. So right now, real quick, I'm going to put in the chat right now, we're going to put in the link to call us and tell us what you think. Guys, talk to us about the Pac-12 as a whole. Rick, what do you think about the Pac-12 compared to the other conferences?
Well, the Pac-12 had a few good weeks. This last week, obviously, with the big win, both on national TV, with Oregon dismantling BYU 41-20. And then University of Washington beating Michigan State. I believe that final score was something like 39-28 or 38-29. The score wasn't that close. That was a complete domination. And then you also had, USC beating Fresno State. Fresno State's a very tough Group of 5 team. And I believe the Pac-12 went, I think it was 8-3. And so they had a very strong showing overall on the year. Pac-12 is 24-9. They have some of the best Power 5 wins with Wisconsin, Michigan State, and BYU. All 3 of those teams figure to be top 25 caliber at the end of the year. And they have some great Group of 5 wins and beating San Diego State twice, Fresno State, and also beating Boise.
I like that. We got here from Darrell pointing out, okay. Yep. I tell you guys, one of the things that I really think is the Pac-12 is not that the Pac-12 is doing particularly exceptionally well. It's that the Pac-12 is just back to normal. I mean, I have the Sports Illustrated cover that asks, Pac-12 versus SEC, which is better? And that was normal for the Pac-12 to be doing well like it is. So let's bring in one of our first guests. We've got Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. Jeffrey always has lots of good ideas and good things to say. He is a Indiana fan from North Carolina. So certainly a guru of Big Ten sports, but also a fan of everything around the whole world of college football. So guys, you're going to want to follow Jeffrey. Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Welcome back, Jeffrey.
Thank
Good
you.
to
I'm
have
glad to be here. I saw one person ask in the chat about what was a better win. I think you guys already answered it, but did you think the Washington win was better or the Oregon win, or they were both just as good? Like both were just equally great.
They were both.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, they were both great wins, but I think on a national stage, going in and being out, Michigan State is not, they're in the East and they played well. They had a good season, but I think on a national scale, I think that one was a bit bigger. But the way Oregon responded to all the criticism and just smacked down BYU, it's kind of hard to argue. You could probably flip a coin. I think the overall picture, though, I think the optics were better on the big win against a name brand Big Ten team.
Right. I think that's right, Tim. I think like the optics say that like most people in the country just generally would be like, oh, beating Michigan State, that's a bigger win. I think we know more about BYU and what they are as a team or what they might be, considering they beat last year's Big 12 champ in Baylor the week before this. So we don't know as much about Michigan State, like who they've played before they came into Seattle. We know a little bit more about BYU. So I think the Ducks bouncing back is a better win. But I think like from a national perspective or like national, whatever you want to call it, that more people think like, oh, wow, this Pac-12 team that, wasn't supposed to necessarily even be that good this year, just whooped the crap out of Michigan State and was up 28-0 before people even realized what was going on.
Yeah, and I think they both did a couple of important things too, because they on the Michigan State win, Washington and Oregon both applied to the Big Ten and were told not at this time, which was kind of stinging. So I think for Washington to go in and get a nice big SmackDown win was really important. There's also been so much just like gag-inducing like nonsense about realignment coming out of the conference that BYU is going into, and also the so much controversy with BYU constantly, and that very much conflicts a lot with many of their controversies conflict with Pac-12's core values that are very important to Pac-12 and Pac-12 universities. And so, for Oregon to go in and make a SmackDown, not only said a lot on the field, but it said sort of a lot about realignment too.
I think there were both big wins for different reasons. I don't think anybody expected Washington to beat Michigan State. Michigan State
actually did.
That's right. You did.
I did because I'm the Indiana fan.
You did. You called it. You called it last week.
But, from a national perspective, when I'm talking about the media,
yeah, I know.
It's the Big Ten. It's Washington. They were 4-8 last year. They didn't get a lot of national respect. The fact that they beat them the way they did, now people have to stand up and take notice. Oregon, that was a great win because they answered a lot of questions. There was the narrative going on about Oregon, Dan Lanning, what's going on with the Ducks getting boat raced in Georgia. They stepped up and they beat a quality team. And both of those teams, being BYU and Michigan State, are going to be top 25 caliber. And Michigan State is capable of knocking off a Penn State, an Ohio State, a Michigan. And then that's going to help out the Pac-12 because guess what? A team like UW, who wasn't even picked to win the Pac-12 or compete for the Pac-12, knocked off Michigan State. And in comparison with Oregon, they knocked off a BYU team that took care of Baylor. And they also have BYU also has a great schedule. They're playing Notre Dame and they're playing Arkansas. So an SEC team and an independent. And so they have opportunities to get some big wins out there. And so Oregon and Washington are going to kind of be in a similar situation last year, with Oregon going in and beating Ohio State on the road.
And then Washington, and remember this: Washington was, like you said, 4-8, and Michigan State was 11-2 last year. And so that optic. Now, how much of that was Walker as running back? Who's gone now? That might have had a major factor in that game. But again, it's just purely optics. But again, both great wins for Pac-12.
Yeah, the reason why I had a feeling Washington would win, if I wasn't an Indiana fan or, watching, I wouldn't have picked them because I wouldn't have known nothing about Michael Penix or Kalen DeBoer. But knowing what they both did when they were at Indiana, and plus with the transfer portal, USC was 4-8 last year too, and Washington was 4-8, and teams can turn around easily now with the transfer portal because Michigan State was 2-5 the year before that, and then they went 11-2 last year. So you can't really base these teams off what the records are last year anymore because teams can flip so fast now.
Well, the reason why I called the win was the fact that Michigan State was dead last in pass defense last year, and I was watching Penix in that offense. So I said, I just don't think they'll be able to stop him, and they couldn't stop him.
And Jeffrey, just so you know, something I was kind of laughing at. My dad actually called this one too. My dad played for Michigan State, and Michael Penix drove his beloved Spartans bananas. And my dad told me the minute because he knew that they were going to Washington this year, and he laughed. He said, the minute I heard that Penix was going to Washington, I knew we were toast.
That's funny. I was going to ask something else, too. Do you think that it was the right time to fire Herm Edwards at Arizona State? Do you think that they pulled the trigger too quickly or that they made the right decision to go ahead and fire him?
I'll jump in and tell you that I think it's the second best time. So the best time would have been 2 years ago. The next best time would have been whatever minute they would actually do it.
Yeah, that's a lot. Like if you listen to the conference, what's it called? Chris, help me out. The Woods Podcast of Champions. Yeah. David Woods has been saying, the best time would have been, months ago. The second best time is right now, and that's exactly like what Tony's exact.
Oh, does he say that?
Oh, yeah, he said
by the way, I was not stealing that from I love the Podcast of Champions. I don't always listen, guys, when you get to the boring parts, so sorry. I was not stealing that from you. I was stealing that from cheesy entrepreneur quotes.
Oh, but if you're a Pac-12 fan and you are not listening to that, again, what are you doing? It's entertaining. And,
they're awesome.
It's just an amazing listen.
There are. I'm going to tell you guys right now. There are two great Pac-12 podcasts that everybody should be listening to. One is the Podcast of Champions with David Woods and Ryan Abraham, the USC and UCLA, probably moving to the Big Ten at some point. Hysterical, very on brand from the Pac, but also really, really insightful. The other one, not quite as insightful, but actually funnier, is the No Truck Stops podcast, which is about the Pac-12 and also definitely worth checking out.
And Trojan fans out there, if you're listening, please listen to that because you can just hear, you can almost taste the salt and the tears from those guys. They talk about how great USC is doing this year. Absolutely wonderful.
You can. It's entertaining.
Absolutely wonderful.
Another thing is also being, watching Indiana all the time. They have a hard time getting fan support for their football stadium because they're not very good, and plus most of them are basketball fans. But why is UCLA? Why is the fan support so poor? I mean, I know LA, you got so much stuff to do. But that was pretty bad. Why is it so bad?
I think that the narrative is a little bit misguided in the sense that, I don't know how many fan bases outside of like somewhere like Nebraska would go through their worst. No, because this is a credit to Nebraska because they show up no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not ripping on Nebraska.
I don't know how many programs would go through what is their worst 3 years in program history and expect to fill stadiums.
It is impressive.
And Chip Kelly's first 3 years at UCLA were the first 3 years for the program since its inception by record. I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think a lot of people are like, oh, Chip Kelly, like, couldn't be that bad, Chip Kelly. But it was. And the other thing is yeah, like when there's no enthusiasm for the program. It's like very dry, boring times. I think when we win, I shouldn't say if, because we're going to, when we win this week against Colorado and Washington wins, and both teams are 4-0, and you got an interesting game on Friday night against the Huskies in the Rose Bowl. If it's still 30,000 that game, then yeah, we can say there's an issue there. But what, like in 2014, we led the conference in attendance. If we win and there's excitement around the program, or even last year when we played LSU, people will show up. But when you're playing South Alabama and Alabama State and Bowling Green, and like, you know, you went 8-4 last year, but you didn't beat anyone over a 500 record, and the 3 years before that were the worst 3 years in your program's history, then it makes a lot of sense that people aren't showing up, and there's a lot of reasons for it.
And I'll tell you one other thing, and this is not in defense. The last few games, their fans, their lack of fan support was gross and embarrassing. Just was. And Chris pointed out there's a lot of really good reasons for that, but like it's just flat out bad, no question, end of story. But in a lot of years, they still take a lot of flack, even though they have more people than a lot of these other places. So, for example, the Rose Bowl holds about 95,000 people. UCLA typically puts about 50-some in. Say, okay, that's about, you know what? They're like average most years. Their average is more people than the Baylor Stadium holds. It's way more. Even a crappy UCLA attendance game is more people than Central Florida holds. It's more people than Texas Tech holds. And so some of these fans that you see, like, just, oh my God, UCLA, they don't love their team. And it's like, guys, they have more people than you do. Now, their stadium's half empty because it's 95,000 people, but they have more people than you do. So I think Chris is right. You know, if they keep winning, they get into the conference games, people actually, you know, start to come out. The other thing is and this is not an excuse, it's just an FYI because it actually matters, is that their students didn't move in until this week because they're on a quarter system. And their stadium, by the way, remember, guys, is also 45 minutes away from the campus.
And it takes 45 minutes.
At least.
So.
Right.
At least 45, probably maybe even longer. And all right, Jeffrey, we got a couple more folks coming in. Anything else real quick?
Just two quick things. Number one, do you think that Karl Dorrell is the most likeliest coach to get fired next in the country, or do you think there's another head coach somewhere else that is more likely to get fired quicker?
Guys, go quick.
Easy, Harson.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if Colorado cares as much as the way that like the Auburn does, in the sense that like Auburn might not be as big of a problem, but Auburn might fire their guy well in advance of when Colorado finally decides to cut bait. Yeah,
I think though Dorrell is, and Karl Dorrell is a great guy. He's a really neat guy, but based on the athletic director message from that, I think it's going to get really ugly real fast.
And the last thing, real quick, do you remember a couple weeks ago when you guys asked me to put the link to my channel in the private chat, and you guys were going to be nice?
Yes, will you do that right now?
Chat? I got it right now. I actually figured out how to do it, so I'm going to do it right now.
All right, give us that link. You guys follow Jeffrey. Jeffrey's awesome, and you guys should really check out his channel and follow him.
So, thank you so much, guys.
We're gonna post it right now. It's
Thanks, Jeffrey.
That's right there. I think I should put it. Jeff, what's the name of the channel, Jeffrey?
Only Talk Sports.
All right, Jeffrey, I'm signing up for it in just a minute myself.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. All right, to our folks who've been waiting, thank you guys for having some patience. We'll bring in a couple of you. Let's bring in Larry and Tide Guy. Connor and Austin will get to you guys in just a minute. Guys, welcome.
How are we doing, guys?
Good. How are you? Welcome to the show. What do you guys think? It's going to be an interesting weekend in the Pac-12.
Yeah. So, hey, Tony, what do you think about BYU's excuses and confirming that you and I believe they're a G5 because we're in week 3? They have 2 guys go down and they can't win a game. They get blown out because they have 2 guys missing.
Well, they also tried to blame it on like one call from the refs. They're like, there was a holding call. It's like, guys, you got your butts whipped.
Another reason I don't want to be in the Big 12.
Those guys were out against.
I want to be tied to those clowns.
Those guys were out against Baylor too, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So, they're just insufferable. Anyway,
You know,
I remember
I've been appalled actually, just like how insufferable. Like it's the one thing that I think has been kind of good is that in all this realignment mess, some of the Big 12 fans or some of the have like sort of understood, I think, a little bit why the Pac-12 has never. I mean, there's so many reasons that they've never fit in the Pac-12, but I think people are starting to like maybe be like, wow, there is a cultural difference between some of these schools. Right. And that, you know, it's a good thing, I think, for people to realize that it's not just interchangeable Legos. There's a culture and there's a reason behind conferences in most cases. And this is a conference that has a very, very, very strong culture. And it's a culture actually that meshes well with the Big Ten and has meshed very closely with the Big Ten for 75 years, which is why you sort of saw the two schools that fit well in the Pac-12 also fit well in the Big Ten. And it's why those conferences have always had that relationship, and that relationship didn't go with other conferences.
So you posted my comment when so I listened to Coach Whittingham for the Utes, and they asked him about.
I love him.
Yeah, well, he's so down to earth. He's like the dude next door. You could be mowing your lawn, and he'd be the guy to come up. Hey, how's it going? You know, I mean, I've met him quite a few times. He is so down to earth. You wouldn't even, if you didn't know who he was and you met him, you wouldn't know that this guy is on a national level for real.
Well, and so much of the Utah team is like that. I don't know if you guys in the chat, by the way, if you haven't seen the Britton Covey comments about when Britton Covey, star of Utah, team captain, amazing, awesome guy, who's now on the Philadelphia Eagles. Got called up in the practice squad. It was a big excitement, and then they wouldn't let him in the parking lot. So he went and parked with the tailgaters and walked into the stadium. And he said, "You know, it was kind of good. I didn't play real well. I think I probably need to walk through those folks again." You know, I mean, just very much in the culture of Utah. Utah's got a great team full of really good folks.
Yeah. So you know, like he said, Whit said, you know, he was asked. He said, "What are you expecting now that Herm Edwards is not there?" And you know, he said, well, their coordinators are still there, so we're going to pretty much see the same schemes. But he did say, and I loved how he said it, he was like, you know, but they're a wounded animal, and you just don't know how a wounded animal is going to act. And so look at when Kalen or Rolovich left. I mean, Washington State came to life a little more.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And look
at
when Gary Patterson got fired from Texas or from TCU. They fired back and beat Baylor last year. So yeah, you never really know.
Yeah, and I'm glad we get to face Emory, and then we get to face DTR before we have to face Caleb. I think it's going to be good for our defense to kind of face some more of these quarterbacks, these dual threats. You know what I mean?
Larry, Whit was very political. I mean, he's a great guy. That was the coach answer, but everybody knows in the Pac-12 that ASU lost a lot of talent to the transfer portal because of that situation that was going on there. So, I mean, I don't expect them to be a wounded animal. They're a dead animal. They're basically roadkill. And Utah is just going to take them. So
I agree a little.
That's a great thing to say, but they have nothing.
You can talk about TCU and Washington State as examples of that happening, but then you also have a recent example of Nebraska, and a lot of people saying like, oh, you know, they're going to go out, you know, Scott Frost is gone, and they're going to, and that didn't happen. And I think the phrase of a dead animal is probably a little bit more on brand, especially if they were playing someone else in the conference that maybe I didn't think was as good as what Utah, but I think Utah is, then I think that maybe they start to turn around this game. But this is not the week for that, and I don't think the Utes. Yeah,
no, they're
much
deep,
to worry about.
Did you guys see the stat lines for the first half of the San Diego? I mean, San Diego State's not as great this year. Utah held them to like 80 yards in the first half, rushing and passing combined. And they had 170 something yards total, but it was, I think almost 100 of those yards were against the third string guys in the fourth quarter. That defense looks like they're starting to play together, if that makes sense. So I think Utah is going to hold them hold them down pretty good. But as long as Emory Jones doesn't have the same game he had against Alabama last year, we should be fine. Because I don't know if you guys watched that game. But he was pretty good against Alabama last year. Emory Jones was. So,
Yeah, he was.
You know, I mean, they've got Emory Jones, and it takes more than just him. But I've seen what that guy can do. Just like, you know, Delora, or even who's DTR. DTR and Delora are the same guy. Like, they'll either win you a game or they'll cost you a game.
So I'm gonna jump in real quick. I used to be like very, very negative on DTR when he was first starting, and I agreed with that a lot. The dude has actually matured and gotten better over time, and you should as a fifth-year senior. I used to lose my brain when he was, like a freshman and sophomore, some of the ways he would not take care of the ball. Yeah. There's a lot less of, and granted, there's part of who we're playing, but just as a decision-making thing from him this year and last year as well. But it's been super noticeable to me. He's had a couple scrambles where he gets on the verge of taking that, like that 17-yard sack or something. But he does a lot of things where he's thrown it away a lot more this year, or, taking what's available and, not trying to make the 60-yard play every single play, and has actually improved a lot on that front. And I do kind of want to, as someone that used to be very negative about DTR and what I thought he was as a quarterback and a decision maker, and say that, it's early obviously, but I think he's a lot better than he used to be in that regard.
And guys, we've got a bunch of folks waiting, so let's try to roll through real quick.
Tide guy didn't get in. I took up all the time.
I just wanted to say a couple things really quick. First of all, I think the Pac-12 kind of got screwed in the polls this week. I did a video yesterday. I have the Pac-12 with 6 teams deserving to be in the top 25. I think there's too many teams in the top 25 because the people who vote, they put their blinders on and we put them in, so we're going to leave them in until something terrible happens. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I've heard this from 3 different places now, Arizona State is looking at Brian Harson from Auburn to come in and replace Herm Edwards.
Is that true, or is that just that seems to me like that's just the name that reporters started writing?
I'm hearing it from reliable sources. I mean, 247 Sports is saying it. There was 2 other big reporters who have mentioned that he is on the list. Now, I don't know why you would get rid of Herm Edwards. Well, I know why you get rid of Herm Edwards, but why would you replace that with Bryant, with what's going on in Auburn right now? That don't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know that it's really happening. Although, quite honestly, he might be a better coach for them than anybody else. I mean, the other name that I've heard a lot that I think would be incredibly successful there is Matt Rule, because think about Arizona State, guys. Arizona State is it's actually a pretty good school. Michael Crow has done amazing things in the last 20 years. It used to be a big party school. Now it's a pretty solid school. It's not AAU, but it's a really, really good school. It's a great city. It's a fun campus. It's the best party. It is the most beautiful people in the world. I mean, it's literally where they go and recruit models and porn stars. You can't go wrong with Arizona State. It's a great place to be, and they have a great fan base. They got a beautiful stadium. They have top-notch facilities. It's a place that I think is going to be able to get a lot of success.
If I have to hear that
Rule, I could see him going to Arizona State. I don't see him going to Nebraska. The problem with Matt Rule, and a lot of people might not know this, he's 2-16 against top 20 or top 10 teams.
Is he?
Yeah. So I mean, that's a big, for a place like Nebraska, that's going to matter. Now, a place at Arizona State, he is a good coach, and so that don't matter as much. I think he would fit better with Arizona State.
If I have to hear the phrase sleeping giant one more time, Arizona State has been a sleeping giant for 45 years. Rumpelstiltskin had a shorter nap. My God. They're just inept. at Arizona State. Pick the president, pick the AD, pick their agenda, their recruiting. They just can't get it right. And it's the easiest school to get into academically in the Pac-12. And they won't figure it out. I mean, this news about possibly hiring Brian Harson, that's on brand for Arizona State. I mean, come on.
That's true.
They hit their peak with Kush. They hit their peak with Kush, and they're going down. There's no reason why they are not recruiting at a higher level. It was a bad failed experiment. And just again, one of the many reasons why the Pac-12's laughed at is hires like Helton, like Lake, and we're
don't
seeing
hire
what's happening because of it.
don't hire the interim. Oh, Austin, I think, do you still have your YouTube on? Austin, you want to mute the YouTube?
Hey guys, I'll get out of here so you can get more people on. Great show as always.
Thank you for joining us. Hey, you are always welcome. You're welcome to just hang out if you want. We can leave you on.
Thanks, Jeff.
No, that's fine. Get other people in here.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
If you go slow later, I'll hop back in.
All right, awesome. Good to have you.
Drop your link to your channel so we can throw it out there. You
Yeah,
guys,
put your link, guys. Jeff runs the Tim will post. Sorry, go ahead.
It's not just about Alabama. He does great videos about college football. Knows his stuff. If you guys haven't checked him out already, please do yourself a favor. If you want to sound smart in front of your friends, go check out Tide Guy.
Yeah, Tide Guy is a really, really insightful channel with really good things to say about all of the conferences. And Jeff, just to kind of reiterate, one of the things that I think is also not as understood is we don't know what's going to happen. Right now, the Pac-12 may not expand. If not, Arizona State is, I believe, the closest Pac-12 team to Southern California in that recruiting ground. So, Tempe may become a much, much, much more important base of power in the Pac-12 as the LA schools go to the Big Ten.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be even more interesting. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. It's so good to have you.
Hey, thank you. I'll put my link in.
Yeah, and we'll post it right now.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Connor representing the Beavs. And then we're also adding, just so we got all the more the merrier, we got Will, Notre Dame.
What's up, everybody?
Will, the people were calling for you earlier. I don't know if your ears were burning. But while you were not here, people were saying, where is Will ND?
We went bear hunting and we caught him in the trap. We caught Usc in our trap at the end. He almost escaped. That Hail Mary almost went off. They almost escaped. But we did end up trapping Usc.
You did. You trapped Notre Dame Irish trapped Usc. All right, Will. We'll get back to Usc in just one sec. But we've got Connor has been waiting. Connor, the guru of the Beavers. It's Trojans versus Beavers this week. Or this way. I'm doing it reversed. No, that way. Wait. The reverse is hard. What do you think, Connor? USC and Oregon State. What is going to happen?
Big time. Prime time. Pac-12 Network. Yogi Roth. We're all going to be there. Everybody get Fubo 1 week free trial. 2 people can be on at once. Make sure you add the Pac-12 supplemental package. So it's going to be huge. I got my ticket. I took notes. So I've been all over the place on these shows. I'm going to try to keep it tight.
I like it.
Firstly, the atmosphere. Reeser, it's going to be rocking. I think we're going to be pushing 30,000 this weekend because they released earlier in the week. I got a standing room only ticket for $30, and then I checked Tuesday. They were up to $45, and now they're up to like $100. So people are going quick. The students are back in town, and I'm biased, but there's an argument to be made that we have the best student section in the Pac-12. We are the
we watched a video of them earlier taking the field in the past.
Yeah, ranked the #1 college town in the Pac-12. So, and that is.
And real quick, are they letting people into that bit of the construction area that is like in there?
No, the press boxes are actually there, though. I think it's a liability issue because I feel like you could put some people on that lower tier you see there.
Yeah.
But it's got to be a liability, like an active construction site. I doubt they could get away with that. I think I actually saw that they took a while to get a permit for even the press boxes to be there.
Okay.
So the standing room only
wants to know if it's called a half freezer now.
If you go, half a potato salad. If you go to the other picture, of the overhead. The terrace in the end zone. So on the far side of the video or of the picture, there's like an outdoor terrace seating or area with like vendors on top, and so you got stands right there behind the field goal post. But then behind that is the standing room only area, and then it's gonna wrap around and all through Beaver Street where you could walk around. We're just gonna fill that up, packed house. Some people are pissed because it's going to be harder to get to the vendors, but we need it as loud as possible. And on that note, you spoke on the west side, the renovated side. It's got to be ominous. I think a Beaver mentioned it. It would be better if our players were on that side and we had USC on the side with all the loudness. But I actually think it's better that they're over there in this like ominous, nothing behind them, all the noise just coming right at them. And so the university actually set up a temporary surround sound speaker system that they've put on the west side based off of our first home game against Boise. We needed it to be louder. So we're going to be pumping in music to play over the Troy Fight for Troy song, which fun tidbit. We've been playing that at practice all week. Just so that our guys on defense get so annoyed by it where they're like, we can't allow a first down. We don't want to hear that damn song again. So it's also going to be an orange out. So any Beavs that are going to be there, Clint, Mighty Beav, I don't know if you are going, it's an orange out. And we are wearing, you showed the video earlier, we're wearing black pants, orange top, which we rarely do. We did it once last year against Idaho. We normally go all one color, but shout out to the 2008 year. Orange top, black pants, orange lids, or black lids, of course. So about
USC's going with our uniforms that we pioneered in about 1940, and we're solid with those.
Well, this is the same color scheme, same uniform matchup as 2008 then. So I don't know. A lot of stuff is coming together. The national media overlooking us. You
got the whole crew. You got Yogi, you got Ashley, you got Ted. I mean, you've got the serious Pac-12 crew coming in. Everybody's going to be there for this game.
I think I might just spend the whole day there. They're going to be there at 10 a.m. setting up like the Pac-12 version of game day. It's gonna be fun. I'm going. I'm gonna be. I won't have a voice afterwards, so I don't know if I'll be able to call in because I'm gonna be yelling so loud. Unless we win. When we win, not unless.
Definitely call into the post game because we do the USC post game live.
Yeah.
Win or lose, we would love to have you. You can do it from the stadium if you want. That would be awesome. If you want to just call us from the stadium, we'll put you on. Absolutely, win or lose.
Okay, sounds good. I'll do that. About the game. So that's the atmosphere. I love that. Who else? Everybody needs to
Austin,
go to
I was just clicking you in, Austin. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Everybody needs to go on YouTube right now and watch the demolition. It was awesome. Who doesn't love blowing stuff up?
Well, you know what? The good news is they're going to replay it on Saturday night.
Oh! I haven't heard that one before. So
boom!
Go back to the one of the straight on shot. I think it's unique to have keep going. That one. I think it's unique to have, and so you can't see it in that picture, but on a clear day, you can see the coastal mountain range on the left and right of that upper section right there.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, there we go, right there. Yeah, look at
Oregon, you guys, and anybody who hasn't been to Corvallis, Oregon State has a beautiful campus. Like I think it's prettier than the Oregon campus. Like Oregon State is a gorgeous campus. Corvallis is a cool town. It's actually really close to Portland. USC is having its big pep rallies and stuff in Portland. It's going to be quite a fun week, I think, for everybody.
Last note on the atmosphere. One thing I find hilarious is so the away locker rooms are going to be in that side, but up until this point, away locker rooms have always been in the basement of the Gill Coliseum of the basketball arena, which is across the street from the football stadium. So the USC guys are going to have to get changed there, and they're going to walk across, and we're all going to be heckling them, sending them off to the Big Ten so they can go freeze their butts off in Michigan. It'll be fun. All right, on to the game. So offense first. This is just can we keep up with Lincoln Riley's scoring? And people say we can't, and people say we're way overmatched talent-wise. It's like these are the same people that assume we're the same old Oregon State. So 2 guys to remember without Luke Musgrave. That's going to hurt, but we have some guys. So Tyjon Lindsey, who was a former 4-star, former number 7 receiver in his class, last year against USC had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Trayshawn Harrison, who I think is going to have the biggest game, he's 6'2", former 4-star number 7 receiver in his class. He's a statistical right now, I think top 5, maybe even top 3 Pac-12 leader. He had his drops issues. Tim touched on that. But that was at the beginning of, I think, the Boise game and then the beginning of the Fresno game. Since he's been doing way better. Just one of those things, he was getting ahead of himself. He's our best yards after catch guy. He's got the amazing play against, I think it was Fresno, where he caught it and then it was like 15, 20 yards out and there's like hordes of Bulldogs around him and he does this spin move. Beautiful. So he's going to be huge. And then our other receiver, Anthony Gould, is a legit 4.3 speed, great hands. He's going to be our like move the chains guy, but he's also our punt returner. I think that's going to be a key to this game. He returned one against Montana State last week. If we can sneak one on special teams, he's the guy, and he's just a burner. So I don't know. Before I talk about defense, anybody want to talk offenses? It's going to be who scores more, I think.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I right now I am thanking God that you guys did not figure out a way to get JT Daniels, because if that was the case, I would be a little more worried. This may come back to haunt me, but with Nolan, I'm not really that worried. He's a solid game manager. He's a solid game manager, but he's not the kind of guy that's going to be able to go into a shootout with USC.
I think you're going to be surprised. He has the number 2 or 3 QBR. His main thing was his long ball. He's worked a lot. He's hit a lot of great passes, 20, 30 yards plus down the field. That was the main emphasis. And if you look at what Jake Luton, who's in the NFL now, did his second year under Smith, we're seeing the same jump from Chance Nolan, who, you're right, is a game manager and he can get it done on his with his legs. But he's really made an emphasis. A lot of we would have so many more yards through the air.
Hold on, real quick, LBC. Real quick, LBC. The guys are asking for your take on this. The crowd, your fans want to know what you think.
Yeah, Clint's a beef.
I'm being polite. Connor's a great Oregon State supporter. But when I hear that Chance Nolan is getting better, come on. We got Chance Nolan. They do have some great receivers, but you're going against Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison and Mario Williams and Brendan Rice, and you're going against the running game. We got dudes, Austin Jones, Travis Dye. Travis Dye is familiar with playing in Oregon. Exactly. And so,
and by the way, Vandy Dandy, Tusk, when that band plays, it is amazing. Keep going, guys.
Vandy baseball school.
There's no doubt that Oregon State is going to score. I have no doubt about that. But you're also going to kick some field goals. And USC has scored 7 first quarter touchdowns. Not field goals, not points. 7 touchdowns in the first quarter. This game is going to be
I'm ready to talk defense.
It's going to be one in the first quarter. I mean, Fresno State ran on you guys. I mean, my God, the way they scored 35 points. Come on.
That's
Connor, can you stick around
for a full game?
Connor, can you stick around and talk defense?
Jump out to the early lead. USC has not the 3 games they played. The worst they've done is they scored on their touchdowns on their first 3 possessions.
If you want to talk about
that's been the MO. Jump down their throats and take them out of their game plan. And that's what I'm hoping they can do.
Guys, hold on. We're gonna pause it, guys. We're gonna pause on this game for just a minute. Austin has been trying to join us and chat. Connor, can you stick around with us for just a minute?
I gotta go soon, but I just have defense left to talk about.
Okay. I feel bad. We've been Austin's been trying to get in and back and forth. All right, let's pause real quick. Let's take care of Austin. Let's give him a chance real quick. Austin, welcome to the show. Sorry about that. We've been backed up. We got all kinds of folks. Welcome.
It's all good.
What do you think about Pac-12 coming this week?
The USC Oregon State game's going to be interesting. As I hear that this could be a statement game for USC. See, because I've heard that Oregon State's had your all's number.
Well, we've actually won the last 2 times we've gone up to Corvallis. They beat us. They beat us last year for the first time since what was it, 1960s at home, which was a big win for the Beavers to come into the Coliseum and get a win. But I think USC's 4-1 in the last 5 games. Is that right?
Yeah. No, it's been but that's Corvallis is always a scary place though for USC. I mean, the Reggie Bush Fog game was crazy. The the 2006 and the 2008 games, of course, didn't go very well. The 2000 game where the Oregon quarterback was actually Jonathan Smith, who's their coach now. So certainly a lot of history there. But I think one of the advantages of that history is that the USC players know that history. But we also have, I think, a lot of new players who they know that history, they understand that history, but they're kind of looking at it and they're like, that's not our history. We're making some new history.
This team is loaded, talking USC, both offensively and defensively. They're not going to have a letdown. They're going to go up there and they're going to take care of business. And I love the Oregon State fans. I mean, they're going to be loud, and that's to be expected, but they're going to run out of juice after like halftime. When they're down by 24 points and they know it's over, and their boy Chance Nolan has thrown 2 picks, hey, come on.
Connor, this is going to be so great.
I know. 24 at halftime.
Yeah, 24 at halftime.
That.
Yes. Write that down. Write that down. Hey, Connor, I want you to come on the show. Just promise me one thing. No tears in your beer.
It's on video.
No tears in your beer. That's fantastic.
No tears in the beer. All right, that's right. It's gonna be a great. Connor, I'm jealous you get to go. We want to hear either way what the atmosphere is like.
Let me hear in the chat what my sign should say. There was one in 2008 that said "We ain't scared," orange sign. That's good, but that's not very original. I'm thinking there's a play on words between Trojan condoms and Beavers. I don't know. Let me see what you guys think, chat. And I'll make a sign. I might even write VOCFB on it and give a little shout out. Here's my thing. USC's offense is. By the way, the best
USC sign I've ever heard of said something like, when somebody held up a sign, I think it said, "I'm living proof that Trojan defenses break."
Wow. Okay, so that's a good. I might do that. Okay.
Well, I remember the T-shirt one year said that. I do remember said nothing can beat a Beaver defense like a Trojan. So I'm not sure. I mean, that was a teacher when I was a freshman. So I don't know.
I'm thinking something like Trojan. You should have worn a Trojan next time you decided to F over the whole conference.
I like that.
Okay, here's my thing for LBC. Rick, sorry.
Yes.
I go by hand. I call search. It's Chris. Okay, so I know USC's offense and their coaching staff has a leg up. Let's say they're 2 points higher than Oregon State's offense, maybe even 3. I think that Oregon State's defense is at least 1 to 2 rungs higher than USC's defense. I think the secondaries are a wash. I think you have a great secondary. We have a great secondary. It's going to be the front 7. Can we make a step and get to the backfield at least to throw him off? And the coach Trent Bray has been working. I mean, they're going to throw a lot of different looks at him, a lot of pre-snap changing. We rested last week our top 2 rushers, Andrew Chatfield, former 4-star Florida Gators, 13th ranked defensive end in his class. He didn't play last week, and so didn't Joe Golden up the middle, 6'6", long arms. These are guys that didn't play, didn't need them against Montana State, but they should be ready to go. We also just played Montana State used their running quarterback a lot, and Boise, we forced their backup to come in, who was a running quarterback. So if we're forcing Caleb Williams out of the pocket and he decides to run, we have a guy named Easton Mascarenas, middle linebacker, who's legit as fast as a fast quarterback, and he's going to sit there as a spy. We learned our lesson against a couple of Russian quarterbacks. I like the running backs. I've never been that high on Dye. He's all right.
Oh Lord, wait a minute, hold on. I gotta get in.
I don't think
go
our
ahead,
running
finish.
backs. You like Fenwick, Tim Bringley? I'm not that high on Fenwick. Just like I'm not high. I mean, I'll give running backs their due credit.
Connor, you better be careful. Tim might ban you from the chat.
Well, no, I'm not going to
that kind of slander.
I'm not high on Fenwick. If you remember, my conversation on Fenwick was, and this was, I think it was last week. But he's a big bruising back, and we do not have the biggest defensive line. But I watched Gentry, even, who's 6'6", only 200 pounds. But man, did he have a stick last week? And then you got Shane Lee in the middle as well. My issue with Fenwick is the fact that I think he is a bruiser between the tackles, and I was worried about that. But I'll take Shane Lee, every day and twice on Sunday over anybody you got in your backfield. I mean, Shane Lee, I'm sorry, Travis Dye over anybody in your backfield. The guy does everything right. I mean,
we have a guy like
hands. He's got moves. He's a small guy, but he runs a lot bigger than he is, and he blocks. Oh my God, he's a great. I'd like to see who on your roster can even hold his cleats.
I'll give him props. He is very smart. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's hardworking. Doesn't have elite speed. He doesn't have an elite skill. He's just a dude, but he's a real dude. I mean, he's not going to be an NFL guy. He's undersized. He's too slow. But I'll give him props for props are due. We have a guy, our third down running back, who's not playing in this game, Trey Lowe, who I would compare to a Travis Dye. He's actually a 4-star transfer from Washington. He, with the Huskies a couple years ago, had a pretty good year. And that is kind of our version of Travis Dye, who we're going to miss out on. I don't see – like Jamar Jefferson, Artavis Pierce, BJ Baylor, our last three running backs, I would take before Dye in a heartbeat. But those guys fit our our zone scheme. Mihalchuk, I've talked about that before. We don't have a guy with the patience or the vision to pick the right hole. We're just going to run right at you, which is all right. We're just going to see. That's why we've been relying a little bit more on the air this year.
Connor, we're going to have to revisit this. Please do call in next week because you're about to see what Travis Dye does. He is not just a dude. Believe me, when I heard, I had to like
in
almost.
The NFL.
But Connor, this isn't the NFL. You don't need to be an NFL running back to destroy college defenses, and that's what this guy's been doing throughout his entire career. I don't know what he's a proven 1,000-yard rusher. The guy is not just a dude. He's a great back. He's got moves. He plays bigger. You're right. He didn't have breakaway speed, but he averaged 10 yards a carry or 9 yards a carry last week.
Your team is going to run the ball on us. We've given up some big runs, but the thing about this defense is they're very fast, they're very physical, they're tough in the red zone.
They're very lucky.
We knocked out the starting Rice quarterback. We knocked out Luke McCaffrey, EJ Smith, Emmett's son. He got knocked out of the game the second half. They had a bye week. We just found out he's not playing against Washington. We also knocked out Jake Hayner. So, I mean, you might just
let's not brag on injuring players.
I'm not bragging on it. I'm just saying that it's a physical defense. We tackle, we hit hard. Injuries
we heard for a long time, Connor, in the Pac-12 that we were soft.
Exactly.
It's pretty safe to say that we're not soft anymore.
So
all right, you guys, real quick, we got David wants to make a Connor. I know you got to run, and David wants to make a comment. Connor, finish us out in this game, and then we got to bring David in.
I have a question. Do you know what USC's defense is ranked in the Pac-12?
10th.
11th.
Scoring defense or total defense?
Yeah, right. It was scoring defense.
Total defense.
Okay.
Those are empty calories, man. You don't win games for yardage.
Trojans banned without breaking.
We can score on y'all.
We've given up 19 points a game.
The 11th
except
the 11th defense. We just leave it at that. Colorado is the only team they're better than. Okay, defense.
That's fine.
DBs.
Go ahead.
We have a player named Alton Julian.
All right, go quick because we got David's waiting. We need to bring David in. You have 1 minute.
Julian was an all Pac-12 first-team safety last year. He's been injured. He's back. We have 6 guys that rotate between two safety positions in a nickelback position, and we have two corners. Alex Austin is the number 1 rated corner right now in the Pac-12. On the other side, Rajon Wright, 6'5", long arms. We're going to get in the faces of Brendan Rice. We're going to get in the face of Jordan Addison. They're studs, don't get me wrong, and they're going to make plays. We're going to sit back. You'll move the ball, and we'll hold you to field goals.
All right, Connor, we're going to save this video, and we're going to replay it as we listen to you in the stadium. We want you to call in no matter what. We promise we won't make fun of you too badly.
The service is going to be awful. Well, y'all are overconfident. Okay. My real prediction, I'm worried about this game, but it's going to be a game.
Give us a prediction.
Bias aside, USC is about the spread's worth better, maybe even 7 to 10 points better than us, but it's in Corvallis. Weird stuff happens.
It does.
So,
all right, Connor, give us your score, and then we want to talk to you on Saturday night.
Oh, all right. You're gonna make me put my money where my mouth is. All right.
That's right.
Here we go.
Come on, we got the
40-45 Oregon State. 42 USC. Go Beavs.
All right, Connor. Hey, thank you. We love having you on this show. We absolutely love it. We can't wait to chat with you on Saturday.
Victory down.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Connor.
Thanks, guys. All love.
All love, Connor. We love you. Go Beavs every other week.
Yeah, bye, Tim.
All right. Thanks, Connor.
Great call.
Okay, David, thank you for your patience. We've got David waiting. David, welcome to the show.
How you guys doing tonight? It's kind of interesting that we're talking Pac-12 football again, which I
we like it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you guys love it. As an Ohio State fan, I remember that after you beat us down, what happened to Corvallis. I believe that was the week after, you ran into how many Rodgers, by the way, were at Oregon State running the football, by the way, in 08? Would they have 2 Rodgers on that team?
I think they had 73, but it was only 2.
There was a receiver, and Jaquiz was a running back, and James was a receiver.
James was the receiver. Okay.
I think they each scored 2 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah.
David, that's what we love about the Big Ten is that they respect Ohio State. They would never make Ohio State play on a Thursday night. But they made USC go up to Corvallis on a Thursday night. That tells you all you need to know about the Pac-12 and what a Mickey Mouse.
We opened on a Thursday before. We opened on a Thursday last year, at Minnesota, which, was actually an interesting game until their best running back got hurt. So, yeah, Ibrahim was hurting us in that game before he got hurt. Our run defense, I think that's when we found out our run defense was not very good last year, but it got exposed. I think this is going to be an interesting game. I just want to comment. I was telling Mark Rogers to buy USC stock early. You want to get it before.
You did. I heard you say that.
Yeah. Get on that USC stock early. I'm not in the Colin Cowherd, Joel Klatt category who are, basically all in on you guys. By the way, is Cowherd tight with everybody at USC? He's always dropping USC names left and right, by the way. I find that to be interesting.
Well, he works out of LA, which is probably about maybe 5 miles. The campus is 5 miles from where he works. He grew up.
Not even. Are they right by LA Live now?
They are LA. Oh, they're LA Live. I know.
Yeah, they're like a mile and a half from campus.
And so then he grew up on the West Coast. He was up, I think it's from the Seattle or somewhere in Washington. He grew up watching USC and Pac-12 football.
Right.
He goes back to Bristol for God knows how many years. And he hears all the East Coast stuff. So what he did, he's probably had a lot of pent up frustration. So once he freed himself from ESPN, yeah, he's been on the West Coast train since then.
Yes, I noticed. I see that on his show nearly every day, by the way, I think. Klatt's also been a big fan of you. You know what? I think you the USC fans, I think you guys have been very realistic with your expectations. Some of these people throwing out playoff predictions early on. I think you guys have kind of tempered that. Well, it's been thrown out there. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen either. I think you guys are right to say, what do you think, about a year, 2 away to be realistic?
2 years away.
Yeah. Probably 2 years away. I don't think the Rose Bowl's out of the possibility.
No, and that would be a good year. I mean, winning the conference and going to the Rose Bowl is probably a good year for you guys.
We love that. We're a Rose Bowl people.
It's not about going to the playoff. It's about competing for a national championship. And we do not have the depth at offensive or defensive line. We have to build the lines the next couple recruiting classes, and we will. So we don't want to go. USC does not want to go and get embarrassed. You want to compete, and so I've been saying 8-4 this year. 8-4 is what I believe is the floor. Who knows what can happen? But USC is not a playoff team. Something may happen. They may roll, and they may end up 11-2, 12-1. Who knows? We'll just play a game at a time.
Well, I agree with Roger there. I think 9-3 is realistic. I even think you catch a break at 10-2 is somewhat realistic. I know your schedule has some difficulties on it. By the way, I am totally open to seeing a Washington USC game. I think Penix versus Caleb Williams would be a shootout. And would be fun.
And the cool thing is that would be for the conference championship in Vegas.
Yeah.
I think we'd all have to go.
Wow, I'm there. Great. Mark me down. I got to bring a friend of mine who's a huge Raiders fan. He would love that too. If he could catch the Raiders game that weekend, I don't know if they'd have a home game, but he would love that. Yeah,
I've got a feeling whoever's in that game in Vegas this year, with all the players up in the Pacific Northwest, with USC showing some signs of really getting back to where we should be. It doesn't matter who's in it. For the first time in a long time, that Pac-12 championship game, regardless of whoever is in that thing, it's going to be a hell of a game.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like you guys in this one. I mean, by the way, there was a debate the other day between you and the Buckeyes on who had the best group of wide receivers in the country. I mean, I'm partial. I think if we have a healthy Jackson Smith in there, I still like our group of receivers above anybody in the country. But I think you guys are right up there. I think Caleb Williams has obviously been awesome. I think it's going to be a really good one. What's the line at? Is it still 5.5? What do you guys got?
It's 6. I think it's down to 6.5. I thought it was 6.5, and now it's down to 6. That's what I saw.
Is it 6?
Is that wrong? I've seen 6. I've seen 6.5. I'm not sure what the actual current.
I think I got the over at 68 the last time I checked it too, by the way. Because I'm banking on shootout in this one. I'm thinking shootout.
I think both teams slow it down. No, I mean, if what I'm thinking, so I picked a 38-30 game, and here's why I picked the 38-30 game. I think that it's going to be a ball control game, and I think that we saw a little bit last week what they're playing around with at home against Fresno State, where there were actually intentional long drives, 10 play drives, 8-minute drives, 10-minute drives, chewing up clock. I think that if we get into a game, and that's why I think that it comes close. I think we jump out to a lead. I think that our defense gets tired. We're pretty thin on the line. Our front seven could get tired, and I'm really looking at a game where, maybe USC hangs on to win because the Beavers are coming back. In that scenario, we have to stop scoring, which I don't really see happening. But I can see it to where we do get conservative. Right, later in the game, we're trying to burn clock. We're running the ball, but also earlier in the game, we are going on intentional longer drives.
Right.
To keep their offense our defense off the field and not getting worn down.
See, I 38-31 just sounds right to me. If I'm thinking about it, I think you guys, but it's their home field, so that's the other thing that you always give a few points for the home field. So I think it's a one possession game, and I think it comes down late. The only thing that breaks is if obviously you get turnovers. I mean, that's the one thing that could flip this thing around. Everybody knows that. That's when games get out of control, either special teams or turnovers. But, barring that, I think this is a game that comes down the last couple minutes. By the way, did you guys already talk about the Stanford game this week?
We did real quick. What do you think about it? Washington, Stanford.
See, I think that's going to be interesting. I want to see how Washington plays after kind of a good win last week and how Penix continues to look. I'm kind of riding that hot hand. I like Washington over the trees.
I don't think that Stanford is a very strong measuring stick for the measure that you're looking for.
Yeah, but I just want to see if they kind of keep their momentum going. Is all I'm saying. Sometimes teams get a good win and then they fall back the next week. That's kind of where I was going with that. But you're right. Maybe Stanford is just that bad.
There's a good chance that Stanford might have the worst defense in our league. And I don't think they're definitely one. They're probably like the 10th. They're probably the 11th or 10th worst team in the league. So I think they're going to get hammered.
They can't.
You're banking the Penix puts up huge numbers. Then I take it.
But the
Yes.
Stanford tree has promised me that he's going to give Dubs some scratches.
Okay.
What do you guys think of the Washington State Oregon game? That could be a big letdown for the Dubs.
Well, on that note, Will, we're going to talk about that, and we're adding Mikey G because we are short of some Ducks here.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Gotta
Mikey,
give the
yeah,
Ducks
Mikey,
some
you can
love.
mute your YouTube tab. So Will, ask your question, and then why don't we have Mikey G answer it first?
Do you think it could be a letdown for the Ducks against Washington State? I mean, maybe they should have gotten Cam Ward instead of Bo Nix. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, I think that if your question is, will it be a letdown if Oregon loses? Do I understand that right, Will?
Well, like, are you confident that you'll win?
Okay, so I don't know if you were listening to my call in last week, but I was not confident against BYU, and I'm only slightly more confident against Wazoo. And that's only because of our performance this week. I mean, I think that we're finally starting to figure out the offense, or at least Bo is. And in terms of like a Bo v. Cam Ward kind of discussion, I think Bo has a higher ceiling. Obviously, Ward has done some things that are pretty impressive, but he also is very prone to make mistakes. But so is Bo. I mean, everybody knows that about him, right? If you look
Good
at
Bo, bad Bo.
yeah, and you know, the funny thing is that everybody knows that he has a better O-line. He has the weapons on the edge. He has weapons in the backfield. He has all of the tools necessary to be good Bo. But we didn't see that in obviously week one. So everybody was just left to thinking, oh God, this is going to be a miserable season. And the fact that we've had two very convincing wins, I mean, you expect to blow out Eastern Washington. I don't think anybody thought that coming off of the Georgia game. And then you go into BYU, an 11th ranked BYU, apparently inflated a little bit based on their previous win against Baylor. But at the same time, you're talking about a quality team with a quality defensive line and a respectable quarterback. So I think that we have the pieces kind of coming together. And I really like what we saw this last Saturday.
Well, yeah, I want to make a comment about Washington State. I don't know if you guys caught the Washington State whiskey game. I thought that was a game where, pretty much Wisconsin handed the game to Washington State. If you go back and look at the numbers, I thought Wisconsin, pretty much outplayed them in that football game. They had some mistakes in that game that pretty much cost them and allowed Washington State to pull out that win. So, I will say that their big win so far is as much due to, Wisconsin giving the game away as it is Washington State taking the game.
And I think that's
Mertz,
fair.
man.
Yeah, it's not good.
I don't think you're giving the Coug defense enough credit.
Yeah, I mean, there was a yardage disparity. If you go back and look at it, I believe Wisconsin had over 400 yards in total offense, and I think they outgained Washington State by about 100 yards in that game, or close to it.
But when you say you're laying the game on Mertz, I'm saying you might not be giving the Washington State defense enough credit. Yeah, there's
especially the fact that they went into Madison, right? Like,
yeah,
that is something that has to be taken into consideration. I mean,
and again, your defense is solid. So I mean, there's no one's going to talk about your defense. The Wisconsin defense is historically known to be solid. Again, especially at Camp Randall. So
right.
I mean, you could take it away from them and say that they lost the game more than Washington State won. But quite frankly, in my opinion, an underdog going to someone's house and beating them, that's not someone losing. That's someone taking it to them and taking it from them, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought that Wisconsin really did, outplay him. I thought it was mistakes, but I'm okay. I mean, the Cougs did some good things. I don't want to say that, but yeah, I mean, Mertz has some problems, by the way. Hopefully the Buckeyes continue to exploit those problems this week. But
and to quote Washington State's video, because not many people other than Michigan get to go into Madison and make the Wisconsin people jump up and sit down.
Sit down. There you go.
Well, and just to kind of like put a bow on what he's talking about, that is going to be the narrative, right? Like anytime a Pac-12 team goes in and edges out a win against the Big Ten, that is going to be, we drop the ball. And sure, that may be the case, but did you end up with the tally? Did you end up with the dub? You didn't. And I'm not saying that you're a Wisconsin fan. I know you're Ohio State fan.
I know you're Ohio State fan, yeah. And we heard a lot last year from the Ohio State fans, the fact that, that they didn't play well, this, that, it was only his first game, a second game out. The fact is you guys got out coached in that game. Period.
And the guru has spoken. Mark Rogers himself has chimed in. Wisconsin was 78-0 when going 400 plus yards and giving up less than 300 yards. Wisconsin 401, Wazoo 253, and the Cougs got the win.
Yeah, that's where
Wisconsin
I was going earlier.
Wisconsin also turned the ball over 3 times. Wisconsin also turned the ball over 3 times and had 11 penalties. So there were some mistakes in that game. Washington State also had 3 turnovers. But if you're at home and you have 3 turnovers and 11 penalties and you have 400 yards total offense, that's that. There's some there, and
field goals.
The one thing I wonder about Wisconsin, people used to talk up Paul Chryst a little bit as a coach. I remember maybe more in these early days at Wisconsin, but I wonder, there's not much quarterback development there. And Mertz was a high recruit too, by the way. I would add that.
The Wazoo shut him down.
Yeah.
I think that they should replace him.
Go ahead, Mikey. Sorry.
Well, I'm just wondering if I'm wrong in thinking that the last time Wisconsin was really great was when Brett Bielema was there.
Yeah. Bird had good teams. I mean, but they've always been built the same way they've been built. Big offensive lines, solid defenses. Right. They've always found out one elite back. We can go down the list. It's like Barry Alvarez handed the playbook down generation to generation to generation to every Wisconsin coach, as we've talked about. And they usually are a well-coached team too. Jim Leonard's a good defensive coordinator. So, yeah, I mean, but the one thing is quarterback play and skill players. That's the one thing that separates them is they've never had, other than the 1 year with Russ, when they had Russ for the 1 year.
All right, what about Mikey? What about the Ducks and the Cougs? Do the Cougs have a shot?
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to, right? We're still going up to the Palouse, which is always dicey, no matter if they're 3-0 or 0-3. That's just a wild place to play. I think I heard somebody say that it's the loudest per capita, right? So they have the lowest capacity, but they somehow still the acoustics in that place are just it's pretty awesome. And the thing about it is like I'm one of the old hats, right? Like I respect Wazoo, I respect Oregon State, I respect USC, and we need USC to be great. I give you guys a lot of shit, but the fact is that you were the conference for so many decades, and so to have you guys kind of restore to power just as you're getting ready to exit is all the more infuriating. But that's fine. Like I would do the same thing. I know Oregon would do the same if given the chance. But what I'm trying to say is that. I love Washington State. I love the program. I love the fans. I love the coach. That's another, Cinderella story. He takes over as an interim, and he's putting that culture back into Wazoo that they've been lacking for a while.
And I'll tell you who else is awesome. Their AD, Pat Chun, who is one of the he and Martin Jarman from UCLA are the two kind of big disciples of Gene Smith at Ohio State. And Pat Chun is just a phenomenal guy who's doing great stuff as AD at Wazoo. And then Chancellor Chilton, who's new there, she's been the provost. She just created the new post of chancellor. I mean, they're really doing a lot of cool stuff to build up the school and build up the campus. And I mean, it's actually a really good. It's a famous ag school because Washington is really a really important area of agriculture in the Palouse. And I mean, it's just a neat place, and it's exciting to see him doing great stuff.
Yeah, I'm still not used to USC joining the Big Ten. That's not the football world I grew up in. But as I've been told, everything comes back to the dollar. The other thing with that is we get the issue of the Pac and the Big Ten are very much alike. They very much culturally do fit well together. I said a long time ago, and people laughed at me at the time. This was a couple of years ago. I said I thought they should actually merge. All 26 of them or 24 of them, whatever it would end up being. And it would have been a really neat conference because you do get a lot of cultural similarities. And so to our Big Ten fans, a lot of the things that you guys see, the culture of your schools, the culture of your fans, you guys saw that in Seattle last week. That was a very
traditional Pac-12 / Big Ten kind of world. And it's why those schools kind of fit together. And the Pac-10 had a couple of down years where it kind of stank, kind of like the Big Ten West, which was propped up by the Big Ten East. But they're back, and they're back to normal. It's not an exceptional year for the Pac-12, but I think they're back to normal, and that's kind of exciting.
Well, I think having your flagship program play well is always a good sign. I mean, when you have, USC, you guys have been, obviously the standard bearer for the conference for a long period of time. Because, I mean, after you guys kind of went down, though, I mean, Oregon did pick up the baton to a certain extent with, Chip's teams and kind of the run they had, even their first couple years, after Chip left. So, I mean, they had a good run, as well. But, yeah, I mean, you guys have been the dominant power in the conference. So, I mean, to have them playing at a high level, you have to have your bigger programs playing at a high level. I mean, from an Ohio State perspective, I've said it helps our conference when Michigan and Penn State and the other programs are playing at a high level. And a lot of Ohio State fans have disagreed with me on that. They always want to see Michigan be terrible. I know, but.
And a comment, some people talking about the Idaho game. Just to clarify, remember rivalry games are rivalry games, guys. Idaho is closer to Washington State than USC is to UCLA. I mean, they are in the same town together, and they didn't look great, but it was a rivalry game, and they got the win. And I always think with rivalry games, whether it's Auburn, Alabama, or Wazoo, Idaho, if you survive, I give you a pass.
I don't know, Tony. I'm just gonna say, Idaho's Idaho. So rivalry or not, I mean, I think it's a bit of a stretch to say. Rivalry game really could happen.
Remember that one of the issues with Idaho. So Idaho, you guys may not know this, was part of the old Pacific Coast Conference, but they didn't have bathrooms in their football stadium, and so the California schools finally just stopped refusing to go there. Yeah, no, the California schools just finally said we're not going to go there. And so Idaho was oddly partially in the conference and partially not. And then they got the boot when they created the new Pac-12. They were like, yeah, Idaho, you're not coming.
Yeah, that could be a problem at those stadiums.
Yeah. Well, they used to have to play their games. Get this. Washington State and Idaho, both lacking any feasible stadium, used to have to play their games an hour and a half to 2 hours away in Spokane at a high school field.
Wow.
Funny enough.
Talk about investing in facilities and infrastructure and those things.
USC and UCLA were playing in a Coliseum. Stanford had 85,000. Cal had 80,000. And they were playing in a 20,000 seat high school stadium 2 hours from their campus. So, the development of Washington State has come a long way, and it's come a long way fast, and it's exciting, and it's kind of cool. And I'm told, by the way, although my Michigan State family would probably beat me for saying this, they claim that the Idaho Ag School makes some of the best cheese in the world, and you're supposed to grab some while you're there. Washington State. Sorry.
Shoelace Sooner had a good question. He says Washington State is averaging 26 points per game. Why are we acting like they are better than they are? They're a different team. Washington State's a different team than historically they've been. They've been an offensive team for most of the past couple decades. But Washington State is a defensive team. They are number 19 in scoring defense at just under 13 points a game. So that is what's making Washington State unique this year is their defense. And, historically the Pac-12 doesn't get a good rep for playing defense, but that's what's making them competitive. They went into Camp Randall and beat that team. I don't think if they were scoring 35 points a game, 40 points a game, they win that game. No,
Can I freeze up for you guys?
So you're saying the Mike Leach team would not have gone in there and pulled that upset?
Yeah, air raid teams have a hard time practicing their defense. They have a hard time because they're practicing against an air raid. They're not practicing against a normal defense. So it's hard for them to adjust to playing a regular defense on Saturdays. So that's why air raid teams always struggle on defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the next move for traditional Pac-10 teams. I mean, you guys mentioned about building up on the line of scrimmage. I know firsthand as an Ohio State fan, once you play those big boys from down south, there's the biggest area you have to be able to match up in. You have to be able to match up in the trenches.
Absolutely.
Because
and what I'll add to that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's actually all I was going to say. Go ahead.
No. So Henley is kind of the litmus test for that, right? Because defensively, we've not been really tested yet. I mean, BYU's got a good D line, but I think we're one of 4 teams in the whole country that's not allowed a sack so far. Our O line is just chopping away. I mean, they are studs. If you don't know anything about Oregon, just look at our O line. They're 5 returning starters, every single one of them. In my opinion, could be all conference. One of them in particular could be an All-American in Ryan Walk. But just to say that with Henley, he presents a threat that we haven't seen yet in terms of how they use him. If they line him up over, basically the A gap, does he get in there? And I don't know, because BYU just didn't have a linebacker core like. Not saying that there's many other than Henley with Wazoo, but he's a stud. He got 4 sacks. I think 3 of them were in the last game. He's got 28 tackles. He's a smash mouth football kind of guy, and that's one thing that we, outside of Georgia, obviously, that we haven't really seen yet.
Hey, I want to ask the Oregon fan a question. Now that Thibodeau is off to the NFL, is there a presence on the defensive line that, as far as kind of an alpha there that can get after the quarterback? That's to replace a guy like that, I know, but.
Exactly, yeah. So if you're going to use the context of KT, then the answer is no. And that's no, I'm not throwing shade to any of our edge guys, because they're all studs, in my opinion. I think that they were living in the KT shadow. And you look at guys like Brandon Dorless. DJ Johnson is going to be an NFL guy. In my opinion, he'll be a first rounder. He played both tight end and defensive end last year. That's how much of a stud he is. This year, he is strictly defensive end. He's probably one of the strongest dudes on the team. And he had a critical, I guess he set the edge really well in the first drive against BYU that kind of set the tone for the game, right? So, and on the opposite side, you've got Brandon Dorless. He plays up and down that defensive line. He can line up on the inside, or he can line up on the 3 technique or whatever. Like, he's that versatile. Brandon is such a great dude. Like, if you ever want to get fired up, just listen to that guy do interviews, because he's just got this very sweet natured personality, but you watch him on the field and he's violent, and it's great to see. But to answer your question, yeah, there's other guys. They've actually lined up our 2 outstanding inside linebackers on the edge in the dime spot occasionally, but that's more of an exotic look that doesn't happen all too often. But edge pressure, I think, is there. They have yet to really dominate. Like, we've only got 3 sacks all year, and so the pass rush is probably one of our big question marks. And as you guys all probably know, our secondary is still gelling. Is the kindest way I could put it.
You still have Flo there at linebacker, right? Justin Flo?
Yeah, that's who I was referring to. So we got Justin Flo, and we've got Noah Sewell. Flo sat out last game. They have not disclosed what they haven't even referred to it as an injury. They're just letting him heal up, is what they said, which obviously you leave a guy out, like Flo, out of a game like BYU, then it has to be significant. But according to Lanning, he'll be in this week.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing is, it all starts up front. If you got that front 7 talent, that's probably the biggest thing that separated 04 USC from 05 USC, right, guys?
Yeah.
The defense.
Yeah, the defense in 04 was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The defense in 05 bent a little more.
The defense in 02, 03, 04, 06, 07, 08 was phenomenal. There's one missing, and that was the one we really needed that year. It was probably our worst defense under Pete Carroll.
Actually, we didn't need it. We just needed all of the plugs plugged in the Rose Bowl Stadium review booth. That's what we really needed.
Fresno State Fresno State game. Fans of USC will love to hear this. There were 2 interceptions. One that Darnell Bing in 2005 to seal the game, but there's another one. You guys want to guess who that other interception was in that game?
Which game is this?
The Fresno State game where SC had to come back to get to that Rose Bowl.
Yeah, wasn't that 50-42 or something? Kind of a crazy game. I remember that game.
Crazy game. That just shows you how bad our defense was. Yeah, we were just
that was an epic. It won Reggie the Heisman though.
That's true.
The other guy was Brandon Ting that got the interception.
I forgot about that. It was.
I always thought Reggie should have gotten the Heisman that year for just pushing Leinart over the goal line. I think that's what. I think if Will was here as the Notre Dame fan, he might want to attest to that.
Will, where did you go? Will left us. Will, come back. I laughed that I've been thinking a little bit that if Caleb Williams could possibly win the Heisman, he needs to stand up there and be like, Reggie, this is for both of us.
There you go.
That would be something amazing.
That 05 Texas team was still a hell of a team. We played them in Columbus, and I thought we had them that day.
Great team.
I'm not taking anything away from that team. Michael Huff coming with that stop and the game that Vince Young had. They won on the field. I'm not saying another word. I'm just saying I wish we'd had a better defense that day. That's all.
Yeah, I
was okay with the defense. I just wanted all of the replay cameras plugged in. I would have been good with that. But I'll tell you also, they have great fans. That was an amazing game to be at. And it was a lot of fun with both USC people and Texas people at that game.
You guys talk to McConaughey?
No, he was on the other side.
Yeah, that was just a great year of college football. 05 was a really fun year. There was a lot of really good games that year, and it was fun. I remember we caught Texas early. I was at that game, and that was an electric atmosphere in Columbus. Unfortunately, we ran into Vince Young in the last couple minutes, and he threw a touchdown to beat us.
It was. I'll tell you. I mean, I also love. I mean, you guys can go on YouTube, like just listen to like the intro of that game when Keith Jackson is like, "The royalty of college football is an assembly at the Rose Bowl," and I mean, like just epic Keith Jackson.
Last game he called, I believe.
Yes,
was it?
It was. Yes, it was.
Yeah,
it was. He was a great one. We got really lucky because in his later retirement years, he lived in Southern California, and so in his later retirement years, he would do just random nothing USC games. Just because he was in California. And so it was really cool. Like we would get to have him for games that were absolutely not worthy of the greatest announcer in history.
Yeah.
But down the road, so we got him. It was pretty
cool. He did actually Fouts and him did the Miami Ohio State game too.
The one Miami won except without the flag?
I'm not going to go there. I've been living with that.
Hey, we're teasing you. We're teasing you.
Yeah, I know. Believe you me, you think I haven't talked to Miami fans before?
Yeah, that's true.
Mark's got 85 Miami channels. I got to go on there and defend myself.
You're right. But what an awesome game that was. I mean, and that's one of the things that I really think is exciting about this season, guys. It's with the Pac-12 and it's with the other conferences too. There's a lot of teams doing really cool stuff. And I'll tell you, a lot of flack people are giving about the expanded playoff. I mean, you guys see we're so like recency bias. We're like, oh my God, nobody can beat Alabama or Georgia. But at the same time, guys, history of college football shows number 1, number 2, number 3, they can lose games. And they're going to. And when this playoff comes in and these teams start playing each other, you're going to be amazed. The preordained, sprinkle the pixie dust on number 1 is not going to hold water all the time. And we're already starting to see some of that edging, and I think it's pretty great.
I just want to say I still think 8's a better number than 12. That's still where I stand, though.
I think 32 is a better number than 8.
Well, okay. However you want to set up that season with a 32-team playoff, you go ahead.
Actually, what I would love to see, Dave, this is my opinion. I've talked about this in some other shows, but what I would love to see, actually, which the SEC people like their little heads explode when you say this, but I think that the conferences should actually filter up. So, like, for example, the Big Ten championship should probably be like a semifinal game. Or the SEC championship should be a semifinal game. Like, I think once you get out of there, none of this nonsense of like, oh, we don't have to beat her. You win the conference as part of the funneling up in the bracket. Would I think be something just incredibly exciting and good for the sport. And if Auburn in its every weird year that it's there doesn't get an extra berth, too damn bad. Right. You got to win your conference.
Well, see, that's why I went with 8 to begin with, because it covered all the major conferences. You could get a non-Power 5, and then you still get 2 at-larges. So you have your cake and you eat it too. So it's not like that's, But, again, it comes back to the dollar. We talked about that on the round table once they expanded it. But, I guess we're at where we're at. And the TV contracts are what they are.
And Clint, I like your idea of conference championship and runner-up gets in, except I think that should be the conference championship. So, yeah, they're both in, but that game is that first week. Or that second,
Greg Sankey or whoever would be the commissioner around the time that would be a real possibility is never going to allow that.
Well, they don't like, again, there are some models that they've shown where what the secret is you have to put it so that the SEC championship is basically the semifinal or something like that. And there are ways to do it if you want to. But, right now we're sort of leaning towards a world where we want to just like cram them all in. But I think some of that will adjust. We're in a cycle, and we're in a cycle where the SEC has been at a bit of a peak. We're seeing that peak is not necessarily going to continue forever, and I think it's not.
Well, I mean, they have a lot of. I mean, they have the dollars, they have the recruiting base, so those are two huge things. Now, I do think that with the reformation. And
by the way, Shule Sooner, just and David, just one second.
Go ahead.
Shule Sooner's comment. Shule Sooner is one of our awesome folks who's always with us. There are ways to structure it where you're not necessarily knocking those teams out before it starts against other. The way there are ways you filter it in, and then they play each other. The champions play each other. And what you do is you probably have the SEC champion be like on par with better than like the Big 12 and the ACC combined. Again, there's different models and different ways they have of structuring it that I've seen. But there are ways to make it work like that. But you would have to accept the idea that like you don't have 7 SEC teams. And I think that as we get things more cyclical, that my idea might be more palatable. But yeah, it is a little rough, and it's a little rough like in this year, but we always keep that recency bias. So I'm hoping we can get out of that a little bit. Sorry, David, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say, SEC obviously with their, kind of the talent base, the region that they're in, dollars they invest. I mean, there's a reason they're at where they're at. I mean, once you look at it, that's why I'm so excited as an Ohio State fan, I guess, even though I am a traditionalist, to have a California presence as part of the Big Ten now. So I think that could be really, really big for the conference. And I'm actually, the more and more I think about it, I guess I am looking forward to it, even though, I am, as I get older, a college football traditionalist, like a lot of other people, I know some people are. Now, the only other thing I was going to mention about that 18 playoff and why it shouldn't upset the SEC is there's a good chance they would still get 2 teams in because they'd get the champion and they'd get an at-large bid. One of the 2 at-large teams. So,
the way the rankings go and have gone, I think it's nearly impossible that 3 don't make it in an 18 model.
Yeah.
There you go.
And that's why they want a 12-team model, because if you think about it, they're going to have 16 teams in the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma. Same thing with the Big Ten. So I'm speaking about both the SEC and the Big Ten. If you take a look at the 6 highest-rated conference champions, that's 6 of the teams. You look at the next 6. You might have a Notre Dame in there. You very well could have 2 Big Ten teams and 3 SEC teams,
right?
At the large. So you're looking at possibly 4, 5 SEC teams, and they will do everything to control the narrative to get those teams in there.
Real quick, because he's got to take off. Shule Sooner, thank you very much. Thank you for the super chat. I know the channel really appreciates it. It makes a big difference. Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us. You got to call in sometime. We want to hear from you.
Well, yeah, and so back to the playoff thing. So in 2019, SEC had 4 would add 4 teams in the 12-team playoff. But if you go back to 2018, you get the Big Ten with 4 teams and the SEC with 3. It's going to bounce around 3-4, 3-4. But I also think that the ACC and the Pac-12, I think with everything going on in football, it's the talent's going to spread out. It's not going to be packed in as tight as people think it's going to be. At least not initially.
Yeah. And college football recruiting has become more regionalized, I guess, over this period of time, too. I would add that. I mean, the restructuring is going to be interesting.
You guys, think about your team. You guys, you're not regional at all.
I would say it's more national than it's ever been.
Yeah, I would say so, too. And you look at schools like Alabama, I think Alabama is pulling from over the past, 8-10 years a lot more nationally than they ever have.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama has a good recruiting base in the state of Alabama, but Nick goes national. That's true.
When Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State were I think all in the playoff that one year, they all had quarterbacks from California.
Yeah. Yeah, I know our last national title team that we had in 2014 had a ton of Ohio on it. But since then, we've basically, about 7, maybe 8 guys are recruiting class from in-state, whereas it used to be a lot more shifted the other way.
All right, guys, so we get ready to wrap up?
Sounds good.
It's about that time.
A pleasure.
All right, David, thank you for joining
Thanks
us.
again, guys.
David, thank you.
Great
Final thoughts.
Well, hey, I just hope for another great weekend of college football. I'm glad you guys are doing the channel. And let's just have an ESPN Classic up there in Corvallis.
I like it. Hey, good luck to your Buckeyes. We'll be watching.
Take care, guys.
Hey, thanks again for joining. We really appreciate it. It's great to have you.
Love to do it again.
Anytime. Mikey G. Sco Ducks. What a great week for your team.
Mike, thanks for playing us.
Really, a lot of Pac-12
thanks for
folks.
having me.
A lot of Pac-12 folks were rooting for you. Wishing you luck the best this weekend. Final thoughts as you get ready for OSU or WSU?
Yeah, no, I like you said, great week for the Pac. It's so refreshing, right? Like we always have this non-conference conversation about like how we need to show up, and we finally did it in a big way. And if only we had been able to pull it out on week 1, I think we'd be looking very, very strong. But that's neither here nor there. We have some good momentum going, and I think Oregon has some good momentum going. I really like our chances in Pullman, even though it's always a possible trap game for us. So go Beavs, go Ducks.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you here, Mikey G. All my DM stalking work. So thanks for showing up.
Mikey G, you're always welcome.
Thank you, Mikey G.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again. Who's up with their final thoughts?
It's just great to be in conference now, so that we don't have to worry about all these other truck stops that I don't care about. We can focus on the best football in the country out here west, and it's going to be a great weekend. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to waking up on Sunday with the only Pac-12 teams remaining undefeated being UCLA, Washington, and Oregon State. Talk to you guys later.
Oh,
See you, Chris.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Good
Hey,
run.
TDM, thanks for joining us as always. All right, boys, who's up?
I'll go ahead and chime in. Great show, guys. Thank you very much. I think it's going to be another great weekend of college football. Obviously, with USC and Oregon State, and then the Ducks traveling to Washington State. I think those are obviously the two key matchups. And it's great to see the schools up in the Pacific Northwest doing so well. And looking forward to watching SC again. They've got an incredible team, enjoying the defense, fast, physical. Yes, they do give up yards between until they get to the red zone, but very opportunistic. Looking forward to the maturation of the defense to see how they do on the road in a true first big test at Corvallis. The Beaver fans, they're going to be out there supporting their team, like rightly so, and they're going to be loud. And this is understandably on a national level. Everybody's looking at USC because this is their first quote unquote true test. And I think they're going to be ready for it. I think Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch have got a game plan. I think the culture is strong, and they're going to put on a show.
It's going to be a fun one. Thanks, LBC.
Good night, guys.
Tim, what do you think this week ahead?
Early on, I said 8-4 USC, and this was the trip-up game. This was going up to Corvallis, where Trojan dreams go to die, and it has happened before. Last week, I was saying that we're really lucky that we've had. It just seems incrementally the competition gets more and more difficult. And then just today, I saw Alicia from Marina Troy. She put it best. Those of you guys that played video games growing up, it's like those boss levels where like the bosses keep getting more tough and more tough and more tough. And that's really what's been happening for USC. And it's gonna be interesting. I really want to see which USC defense is going to show up. Have we fixed those run fits? Have we fixed the coverage issues? And I think that Washington, again, I'm hoping we hop out to an early lead and hold the Beavers off, because I know it's going to be a old-fashioned dogfight up there. So I'm also really interested in seeing if that, we're talking in the chat, I'm really wondering if that Washington State defense is legit, or is all that speed and all that athleticism on Oregon going to expose them. So we'll know a lot of things about the Pac-12 going on this weekend.
We will. Thanks, Tim. Well, I want to thank you guys more than anything. Those folks that have been with us for the last couple hours, thank you guys for taking some of your time and joining us here on the Voice of College Football channel. Thank you to the Pac-12 fans and the alumni and the folks that are from the West Coast who've been watching us. But thank you also to everybody, because one of the really fun, cool things about this show for us is getting to hear from you guys. You know, whether it's Will, who's the big Notre Dame guru, Jeff from Alabama, or David from Ohio State. You know, you guys are a part of the college football community, and we hope that this channel and the show is a great way to help you guys get to remember that there's a little bit of football on the West Coast too. So it'll be kind of fun. So as a Trojan, I will say, fight on, guys. It's going to be a great game. There have been certainly a few down years from USC, and so those of us that are alums and fans and supporters, it's been kind of rough for those games not to matter, and this game matters. So whoever comes out ahead, I have always had a great respect for Oregon State. It's a beautiful campus and a fun school and really great people, and certainly a place where Trojan dreams go to die. But I think this coming night, our Trojan dreams are going to survive. Thank you guys once again for joining us. Fight on, and we'll see you soon.